Bitcoin today. Not Bitcoin yesterday. This is Bitcoin today. Not Bitcoin last year. This is Bitcoin today. This is Bitcoin now. And let's get the education going. This is Bitcoin today. Bitcoin now. Don't look now, but Bitcoin is on fire. This thing is, you have to buy something that you can trust in a trustless world, which is Bitcoin. You know, it is a asset class that protects you. The U.S. federal government's unstable fiscal pattern. The U.S. federal government's unstable fiscal pattern. You do not sell your Bitcoin. Sell your Bitcoin. You do not sell your Bitcoin. Sell your Bitcoin. This is Bitcoin today. Bitcoin today. Not Bitcoin today. Bitcoins. Not Bitcoin today. Bitcoin. Not Bitcoin today. Bitcoin. Bitcoin today. Bitcoin today. Bitcoin today. Bitcoin today. No. Not Bitcoin today. You do not sell your Bitcoin.
Sell some Bitcoin.
You do not sell your Bitcoin. Sell your Bitcoin. You do not sell your Bitcoin. Sell your Bitcoin. You do not sell your Bitcoin. Sell your Bitcoin. Don't look now, but Bitcoin is on fire.
Do not sell your Bitcoin, Terrence.
Do you stare in the mirror every morning and repeat that mantra just to keep that big fat thumb of yours off the sell button?
I swear to God, Terrence has my place bugged. He probably has little secret hidden cameras all throughout my home. Damn it, you're on to me. Good morning.
Or he's watching your OnlyFans. One of the two.
My only fan on OnlyFans. Cosmo, long time. How's it been going, buddy?
Yeah, good morning, guys. It's been a couple of days. A couple of days feels like a long time around here, to be honest. It's been since Monday, so yeah, I'm just out of town, getting some stuff done. So this morning I can jump on for an hour though, so I'm stoked to hang out with you guys. I feel like there's quite a bit going on.
Get some stuff done, buddy. There's a lot of stuff going on, indeed. Dark side. Good morning.
Good morning, brother.
Dark-
You know, I love that. I obviously love Sailor and love that don't sell your Bitcoin. But the more important reason is why. Why don't you sell your Bitcoin? And I'm going to go back. I just tweeted out Maryland Hoddle put out a piece that I think kind of sees through the fog of war better than any tweet I've seen in a long time. And I encourage everybody to go take a look at it. I'll throw it up in the nest here shortly. But we are on the precipice of something no one's ever seen before. I've never been more convinced that the proliferation of bit bonds are about to explode. It's going to be the biggest story, not just in the Bitcoin world, but in the global finance world for the coming decade. And I hope we get a chance to dig in deep today.
Everyone has their drinking game vernacular, and Darkside's is bit bonds. When he mentions bit bonds, we all take a shot.
Yeah, when do you think Katie Martin will bend the knee? That's the real question. Do you think she'll just never get it? She's
She's
just gonna
having her
keep
teeth
selling her teeth.
extracted right
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Matt Man, good morning.
Good morning, Bitcoin.
That's his new thing. It's not the Matthew McConaughey good morning anymore. AC, good to have you up here, sir.
Hey, good morning, guys. Thanks for bringing me up.
Hey, Cosmo, what was that MasterCard thing you DM'd? I didn't have a chance to read that
Oh
yet.
yeah, because I remember we were talking about this. I think it was Monday, on Dark Side Space on Monday, the Bitcoin Today Space. But apparently, Mastercard is now enabling stablecoin payments globally. So I guess MasterCard is moving stablecoins, which is pretty cool. I knew that there were rumors that they were planning on doing it, but apparently there was some sort of announcement today. I actually hadn't watched the video yet, um, but yeah, it's pretty interesting.
You know, a fun fact is I think most OGs kind of know this, but a fun fact is that our current Bitcoin logo, you know, the white B on the orange circle, was taken from MasterCard. It was sort of an ode to the old payment system, and it was back in November of 2010. A
So
user,
that's where the orange came from then, because I know the original design was like an
correct.
actual coin. It was like gold and it had the B on it.
Well, yeah, Satoshi
And then
originally had a gold coin with BC on it, and he got a lot of flack for it. A lot of people said it looks too much like a coin and it looks too much like gold. It looks a little dull. He later changed it to a B. He dropped the C, but it still was a gold coin. And then some anonymous user named BitBoy, not the crypto trader scammer BitBoy that we know, but just someone else anonymous. In 2010, he tilted the B 14 degrees clockwise, put it on the orange that he admitted he took from the Mastercard logo, and everyone ended up loving it. So, a little bit of trivia.
I don't
14
know if that
degrees,
was
that is
fun.
very specific.
Yeah, you said this is fun. You also said white bee. So I don't know. I'm kind of hung up on a lot of this stuff and don't really find it fun at all. But yeah, hey,
Okay,
thanks for the.
I'll drop.
It was a great show, everybody. Come again tomorrow. Puncher will be your host. No,
Lauren,
that's
Lauren, did I
absolutely
mention
fascinating.
bit bombs this morning?
Ooh, hang on. I got to go grab my whiskey bottle.
It's going to be a long morning, guys.
There's a lot going on, though. I'm surprised nobody has mentioned
Coinbase.
Coinbase. Maybe Coinbase should be the drinking word today.
Well, I don't know if you guys all saw Brian Armstrong's statement, but like Coinbase or not, I thought that was the right way to respond. That I thought that was a strong response. I was actually very impressed of how he handled that. Again, hate him or love him, um, he did the right thing. For those who didn't watch, he basically said, if anyone is affected by this hack, we will fully reimburse you. And I was like,
Well, wait,
that's
wait a
impressive.
minute. Wait a minute. Is he going to pay for security for anybody who's got a large, sizable stack on Bitcoin? I mean, on Coinbase?
I was just gonna say what they did was they updated the wrench attack database.
There you go. Exactly. Not. They gave out your ID and your account holdings.
The account holdings with it, I thought it was just the ID and the info.
The account holdings were included. So
Yikes.
if you're sitting there
Oh,
with
I didn't see account holdings included.
of
That's
course not.
interesting.
You know,
Uh,
it's so easy for the lawyers to craft a statement that makes you look good, right? But if you read through the details, you realize, wait a minute, are you going to buy me a brand new Glock 19, or like how's this going to go down? Because if I had a lot of coins on Coinbase, I just suddenly became a massive target. And I don't know if anyone saw the video of the young the crypto executive's young daughter who was attempted to be kidnapped in Paris, and her husband saved her after getting repetitively pummeled in the face. He's a hero. But man, like this is a real thing, and for Coinbase to kind of avoid the devil in the details, I thought was absolutely cowardly. So I give him no credit. I give them no credit. And let's not forget that without our favorite lawyers, the AML KYC thing, um, wouldn't even exist. So not only are the lawyers going to be involved in now suing Coinbase, but they were involved in putting the conditions together that made Coinbase a victim. So look, at every level, this is absolutely gross and disgusting.
well, fortunately, the 1% of customers that were affected won't be us because,
If you believe that, I have a bridge to sell you, Terrence.
Yeah.
well,
I
Dark
was
Side said it.
wondering
Well, Dark
why
just said it's going to show
I,
the balance of
who haven't
Bitcoin.
been using Coinbase for like 6 years,
That's what I'm saying.
suddenly got one about 2 days ago, strange phishing things, a text saying your withdrawal number verification code is blah blah
Yeah.
blah, please call.
I
And I'm like, wonder why that's happening. I don't use those jokers for a reason. So I'm
I
sure that
get
this
three or four of
actually,
those I get three or
yeah,
four of
I'm
those
sure
a
this
day, Lauren.
happened. Yeah, I'm sure this information actually got out a lot earlier than everybody realizes, because I haven't heard a peep from them in a long time for good reason, because I haven't used them in, half a dozen years. So
Well, those
it's
social engineering
red
attacks have been
flags.
happening for years. I'm talking
Well,
about
yeah,
this.
but how the hell did they get my information and connect it to Coinbase?
I put it on the dark web once you gave it to me.
Thank you. Thank you. I know you definitely throw me under the bus and have my whole house bugged, so that actually makes the most sense.
The entire KYC AML regime needs to come to an end. They are doing more damage than they are doing good, and the lawyers that were responsible for this should be drawn and quartered.
That's a hat tip to Joe, who's in the audience. Just lawyers, not
Yeah, I
the ones
saw
who
I saw
do this
Joe
stuff.
Joe
Yeah,
Joe tweeted this morning with kind of a tip to the
the
lawyers.
salivating face. Yeah.
Yeah, the salivating face that the lawyers are going to love this, and I immediately tweeted back, "Wait a minute, you guys are the ones responsible for this attack in the first place. You got us, you're screwing us both coming and going." But that's par for the profession.
Professor Bitcoin, you came off mute. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I guess I just want to dive in here real quick and just say that casting aspersions aside and saying good or bad, in my situation, the amount that I had left on Coinbase was nothing to me. But now suddenly I look at it and it's something to someone else. So to me, I'm like, so we're all stuck in the KYC gambit. So is there an actual solution to this, or is it just literally we just get to stand around like babies and cry that everything sucks? So
Professor, it looks like.
yeah,
Oh, sorry, I thought you were done. I didn't mean to cut
I'm
you
good.
off. Go
I'm
ahead.
good. No, I'm good. Go, man. Go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
No,
all
I was
good.
going to say your profile pic almost looks a little bit like Mr. Armstrong. I'm curious.
Yeah, look,
Nice.
look. Hey,
Thanks.
Lauren, there's a pretty easy solution to this, which is get your fucking Bitcoin off of any exchange, right? So, look, if they hack the exchange and they find out you have no Bitcoin, you're not a target.
Yeah,
No,
If they hack the exchange and they find out you have 500 Bitcoin, you're in big fucking trouble.
lock
That's
and
why I
load,
was
yeah.
buddy.
saying it doesn't affect us right now, other than the
Well,
social engineering hassle, of course.
right, but it still doesn't take away the fact that 99% of everybody buys their Bitcoin on an exchange, which has KYC. So yes, of course you take your stuff off, but the trail is there, the track is there. So
Yeah,
yeah, sure, So
I'm curious to hear a legal perspective on this. Joe has his hand up. Joe.
Yeah, I just came up because these spaces should be in places of truth, right? And in the daily dose of misinformation from Dark Side, he says this is from lawyers when that's completely wrong. It was passed by Congress. You have the BSA passed and signed into law by Republican President Richard Nixon. You have the Patriot Act passed and signed into law by George W. Bush, a supposed conservative. You have numerous other pieces like the AML Laundering Act of 2020 signed into law by President Donald Trump, right? So you have a series of Congresses and presidents that put these things into place. And to answer the question of what someone just said, how do you fix this? Very simple, one word: Congress. Congress is how you fix it. You cannot impose a law and then say, oh, the exchange should just ignore it. And moreover, it's totally disingenuous for someone to get on a stage and tell people this is all because of the lawyers.
Can I ask you guys something from a newbie
Hang on,
perspective?
hang on, hang on, Wrench. Throw your
Yeah.
hand up because we do have some other speakers ahead of you. We've
Oh,
got
sorry,
AC,
sir.
and then no, you're good. It's just we when it gets real busy,
He
we
was
kind
coming
of
in with a wrench attack, Lauren.
it was a wrench attack from left field. I think Dark maybe wanted to respond because I think Dark was probably thinking along the lines of, but the lawyers draft everything behind the scenes, and it's just the numbnut politicians that are whose palms are greased that are actually saying yay and nays about all that
Yeah,
they're really doing.
yeah. Thanks for summarizing, Lauren. Let's not let's not bullshit each other. A majority of Congress are lawyers, I believe. All of this legislation is drafted by lawyers. The lawyers are the ones that are profiting the most from all of this crap. If anyone's ever run a business,
No, it's
especially.
actually Wall Street.
Can you
Wall
shut up?
Street,
Can you just shut
the
up?
place
I did
where.
not. Did I
No, no,
interrupt?
I'm
Did
not.
I interrupt you?
I'm not going to shut up
Did I?
because you
Well,
keep
why don't you just
misrepeating things. The
stop,
people
man?
who make the most money in our society is not lawyers. That's a lie.
Order in
You
Uh
the
just
court.
lied.
Order
You just
in the
lied.
huh.
court.
I mean, how many times am I going to
Terrence,
Right,
sit
get on
on
the
this?
right,
gavel.
right. Like you just got to listen to this guy's bullshit over and over again, and not only that, but it's condescending bullshit, right? Like in the end, these
Rightfully
are
so. We should condescend people who peddle misinformation like you do,
okay, right,
Dirk. I'm
right.
sorry. We
Like
should. We
anybody,
should
look,
condescend
look.
people
I've
who get into a space and
unlike
say
you,
that
Joe.
lawyers are to blame for what
Unlike
Congress
you,
does.
Joe. I've actually run a regulated business, and I've dealt
I
with.
know you profited off the back of working class people for decades because you worked on
Oh,
Wall
sure,
Street
I
and you
did.
fleeced people and you
No,
traded options and
sure, I
derivatives. I
did.
can play the same nonsense game you play, buddy.
Go
I
ahead,
can say
try. Why
everything
don't
on
you
Wall Street.
try? Why
Why
don't
don't
you
you
look?
give back all the
Why
money
don't
you made from
before
screwing over the working class? Why
before
don't
you
you actually
spread
Let's clip this.
apologize to
Let's
everybody?
clip this one. Oh, hey, is that the gavel? Did somebody just bust out the gavel?
Yeah,
Hey, what,
I busted out the gavel there. I thought that
what
maybe
did I miss? I just
we
showed up.
Well, Dark
move
should
on here.
apologize because he fleeced all the people by working on Wall Street for
that's not
decades
true.
and screwing over the middle class and trading derivatives and selling our souls to China. You should apologize for the entire Wall Street class that screwed over the working guy. I stand for the working guy, right?
Dude,
Give me a break, Dark.
if you knew anything about the business I built, I tried to bring pure agency to Wall Street.
Tried
I
and
built,
failed.
I,
You failed. You failed. You let
that's
Wall
why,
Street take over.
hey, when I saw how bad the cheating was, I built a system that bypassed their scams. Okay.
After extracting millions of dollars from it, you built that system,
A
right?
little,
Okay.
little,
Yo,
You
you
little,
just
if you're gonna
accused him
make
of
this
blaming all
disingenuous
lawyers.
argument, if you're gonna make this disingenuous argument that I have to answer all lawyers, I'm gonna make you answer for all of Wall Street and all the nonsense that they pull for decades. So that's kind of bullshit you're pulling on these spaces. So go ahead.
I was looking for the gavel on the soundboard and I could not find it. So sorry, I was going to have order in the court. Dark,
look, yeah,
go ahead.
look. First of all, Joe misrepresenting my career is an absolute joke. Okay. I literally spent the majority of my career trying to fix the absolute corruption of payment for order flow, for all of the different scams and schemes that became built into the system. And I built a company, Dash Financial, which literally aimed the entire mission of the company was to bring transparency to an opaque market, to make it so that the individual investor didn't get screwed, so that the individual investor could see where the fees and where the kickbacks were all coming from. I tried to remove the opacity of 14 options exchanges in 2013 and actually built a completely transparent dashboard that showed every fee, every payment for order flow, every different little nuanced scheme that Wall Street had come up with, and show it to the end user. So I think for Joe to try to slam me as being responsible, and look, when I couldn't beat the
You've been
system in,
slamming me for being irresponsible. I've actually the only one on the stage who actually fought against the United States government in court. I'm the only one who's actually gotten these guys who have been in the shitter for crimes they didn't commit
all
released.
right,
I'm the only one who's actually gotten numerous civil liberties
Joe,
actually
here's the
enforced by
thing,
the court system.
Joe,
So don't
here's
give me
the
this
thing. I didn't
nonsense when
slam.
you
I
pay
have
with
not
lawyers.
slammed you.
There are good lawyers, there are bad lawyers, there are good
Good,
people on
and
Wall
there's
Street, there are bad. But
there
here's the
you go.
difference.
I haven't seen Joe.
You get on stage and you slam everybody in this overly simplistic nonsense that lawyers are all to blame for this. Yeah, there are lawyers to blame. There are lawyers that have fought against the BSA and other, they're the people that have fought for freedom since the inception of the country. So again, your disingenuous argument is the problem, and that is worthy of condescension.
Joe,
Hey Joe,
I've never
can you
slammed
fix
you
your
per.
sound?
Unlike,
Your mic is just a little bit off, Joe. Can
yeah,
you
Joe,
do anything?
unlike you, I have not slammed you directly, right? I have slammed lawyers, okay, and I will continue to slam
Which
lawyers
is
because it's a
wrong. Which is
disgusting.
wrong to do.
Okay, well, to me, it's a disgusting
Yeah, I
profession,
hope you
and
never get convicted
the
of a
first,
crime. I think you hope you never get accused of a crime. I hope you never get sued because guess what? You're going to come begging to hat in hand after attacking lawyers. It's always fun to play, poke fun at them until you need one, right? And by the way, I've heard
Joe,
many people have come crawling to my door after attacking lawyers for a decade, saying, "Oh, please help me get out of this big problem I'm in."
I actually have a good lawyer. One of my lawyers is great.
Bravo, he's
I do
probably a
too.
good guy.
I
He is.
love my
He's a great
lawyers.
guy.
I
Yeah.
have several and I need them and they've
Yeah.
saved me, but I get it. It was a generalization. And I mean, I think you're both right in different respects, but
Well, we're not bullfighting
Yeah, that's a
because
good way to say it, Terrence. I agree.
I did not attack Joe directly. I attacked lawyers. Joe came after me directly and started attacking me personally for my career on Wall Street, which is a complete misrepresentation of what I fought for my entire career.
I didn't
Right?
attack
I've
you
been a
personally. I
populist.
attacked you as being part of the Wall Street cabal. And if you go back and play the tape,
Look,
you're not going to shift the argument. I said you're
I
responsible for the whole
literally
cabal.
fought. I literally fought the Wall Street cabal right down to the very end.
I fought the
Man,
bad
right?
lawyers and the bad judges right
Good.
down
Then
to the very end.
Hey, I have a
Hey
great
guys, yeah,
idea.
I'm gonna. Oh,
Maybe we go to hands, but I also think maybe we should do some sort of sing off or something in Vegas to settle this once and for all. So we're gonna go
There's
karaoke
nothing to
night.
settle. We're grown adults and we can talk.
No,
Okay,
I'm
don't get awkward
hey
over the fact that we're
hey
having a
Joe,
disagreement.
you're stomping all over my horrible attempt at making a joke, and it's failing. And thank you for just making sure that it failed. But anyway, sorry, Cosmo, go ahead. I think he
look,
was trying to try to
oh, I was
reinforce
just
something.
gonna. I was just
I
gonna
want to
say.
make one. I want to make one more point.
I just want to make a quick
54.
point really quick, Dark Side. There are 4 or 5 comments of people that are really excited to learn something today, really want to learn something today in chat. So I think best case scenario, move on from this as fast as possible.
Guys, what? Come on. Let it play out.
Come on,
I hate
man.
this
Come on,
censorship
man.
bullshit.
It is. It's why we had
Censorship.
to mute people. We can talk. I respect Dark. Okay,
No,
I
I
didn't.
think, hey guys, I think one of the big things is if we're talking about respect, there's actually 3 or so other hands. So if we can at least interject them into the conversation, because I know I threw Wrench back at Wrench when he wanted to talk. AC had his hand up, but I think he's since pulled it down because he probably wants no part of this. But let's
Hey,
just try to
Lauren,
leave space for other people to enter. Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Lauren, before you go to hands, at
Yeah.
5 p.m., I will be holding a special space for all people that want to argue about anything. How's that? Thursday, 5 p.m., it
it's a
is
rumble on Gary's
Cardone
space.
Debate
Yeah.
Rumble Room.
I love it. Okay. Sorry, where were we? Where we at? Dark, making a point, and then we'll try to work some
Look,
hands in here
look,
just to try to
50.
share the floor.
And while I hate to slam lawyers, 54% of our senators, 54 out of 100 are lawyers. We know that the staff members are predominantly lawyers. We know the people that write these bills and lobby for these bills are predominantly lawyers, right? So yeah, while there are good lawyers, I know many good lawyers. I know lawyers that fight for the little guy in cases against Wall Street. I've done professional witness work for many of them, right? They're really good people. So yeah, not all lawyers are bad. I agree with Joe. And
Yeah.
as
We should have a lawmaking body. We should have the United States Congress, a lawmaking body, not be run by lawyers. To me, that doesn't make any sense. You're going
well,
to have staffers and people that can write laws. Otherwise, you're going to get napkins with random scribbles on it that aren't enforceable and get struck down by the courts. So
I
you
get it,
have to have lawyers around the
but
whole
then you
operation.
absolutely, and then you have
Can
to
the dump
hold
plumber
bad.
get in
Yeah,
here for a minute?
you just have to hold the lawyers that come up with this crazy crap, right?
Let's
Responsible. Like at
let's
some
let Wrench
point,
get his point in after dark. After you're finished, Dark, we'll let Wrench in here.
yeah, look, I'll just land the plane here. At some point, we have to hold these professions responsible. And I just want to add to Joe's point. No one beats up on Wall Street more than I do. Wall Street is a corrupt. I tweeted out yesterday in a little spat with O'Hare, right? I said, look, you can sit around these. He was criticizing our spaces and in particular, I don't know, some specific Bitcoin spaces. And I said, look, you guys can sit around and criticize us all you want while you quietly plan on figuring out how to sell grandma an annuity with a 6% front end load. Like, it's not, believe me, Wall Street's probably worse than the lawyers, right? But I just want to be clear. I fought my entire career trying to fix the wrongs of Wall Street, and it didn't end well for me. I can tell you this: I ended up needing lawyers because I fought the system, and the system fights back. These people are evil at every level. So yeah, there are good lawyers. There's good people on Wall Street, but there's more bad people. There's more bad lawyers, and there's more bad Wall Streeters, and that's just the way the system is.
All right, can I talk now? As somebody who knows something about all this from a little guy's point of view, I really didn't want to get up here and speak or nothing, but you guys drive me nuts sometimes just listening to this stuff. because I happen to know lawyers, and without doxing myself, I happen to be involved in a pretty big lawsuit that happens to do with little guys. And there's good lawyers, there's good people on Wall Street, there's bad people on Wall Street, there's bad lawyers. They're all controlled by the system, by what their job is. So, for example, in said lawsuit, person A did something wrong. You have one lawyer who's defending person A, and then you have another lawyer whose job it is to do everything they can to go against person A in the interest of somebody who ultimately comes down to money. So, from a person who was involved in a big lawsuit, I realized that a lot of it was about politics. It had nothing to do with me. And they didn't give two shits about me. They cared about what the bottom line was the money. Was this lawyer going to win? Because everything when it comes to law goes by precedent, how the last case went. So now if you approach it with something different and a new argument, there's people who have lots of interest involved and there's a lot of money involved from all different sides. And most of the time it fucks the little guy. And that's what happens. And that's why I think Bitcoin is such a great thing to have and to be part of. I've only been following this movement, a couple of years, but I listen to you guys. I think the ultimate point is doing something good. I believe you guys are good people. I believe you are trying to help people. I listen to Joe all the time. Joe's a very smart man. He gets a little carried away, but I think that has to do with because he's a lawyer. You have to be smart. You need to learn how to read books. You need to learn how to repeat stuff. So he can't see outside of the system that he's in sometimes. So we're all in different places. We all have different perspectives. So what I think about Bitcoin is great. And what I originally wanted to ask was from back to Coinbase, for somebody who doesn't know anything about Bitcoin, I buy it on Coinbase. Where can I buy Bitcoin? How can I send it to myself through a cold storage? How do I do it without paying all these high fees?
Rent,
Thank
go
you.
on YouTube, type in how do I go to cold storage, and it'll show you how to do it. Or look, with all due respect, dude, you're not creating new thoughts about the law system here, the legal system.
Yeah, Puncher, I
The
think about
point is,
90% of people on stage probably have some sort
the,
of
the,
large
the,
scale case
the
either
point
going
is,
or in the
I
past.
fought a
Yeah.
lawsuit against a Fortune 500 company basically by myself and my attorneys for 3 years. If you think being correct and being truthful is means much in a lawsuit anymore, it doesn't. They try to bully you with money. Show up and I got 10 of the Boston white shoe law firm guys misrepresenting things, basically lying in depositions or trying to paint narratives that aren't true. I mean, the idea that we're right, 100% right, provably so, didn't mean shit. It ultimately did, but only because we had the money to protect ourselves and we weren't going to give up. And yeah, we did have truth on our side too, but that was a minor point. It only mattered when we were walking up the courtroom steps, when everything else they threw at us failed, that they called and said, hey, we want to settle. It's like, fuck you, we're going to court. Unfortunately, Mike, I have partners that I had to listen to. So
Yeah, and those people that were going against you were all out for their own interest. Exactly. They didn't give two fucks
of
about you.
course, of
They
course.
didn't care if you were telling the truth. They didn't care if you were honest. It was about putting money in their pocket.
Well, but
So
that's not, there's a line that gets crossed. Okay? When you try to hide evidence, for example, when all of a sudden, somebody hides in Mexico and you can't get them into a courtroom, thank God they were stupid enough to show up for a deposition because they needed him to come and lie in a deposition. So he had to come in the United States. And when he walked into the courtroom or he walked into the deposition space, after we talked to him for 8 hours, we served him with a subpoena. Otherwise, he would have been hiding down in Mexico. And that was part of the strategy. So there's a line that gets crossed by attorneys just to win. And at some point, you got to call it out like, hey, that's fucking wrong. I understand you have to defend your client, but you can't lie and manufacture evidence and hide people in doing that. That's called unethical. And somehow that's just like, oh, that's the system, oh, whatever.
No, it's not. Last year, there
Well,
were
it was,
thousands of
Joe, because I
attorneys
lived
across
it.
the
Don't
country
tell me it
disbarred for
wasn't.
lying. There are thousands of
It's one
attorneys
of
disbarred.
the most prestigious law firms out of Boston. They're a bunch of fucking scumbags.
Did you make a
and
report to the
they
disciplinary board? Were they
no, I don't give
investigated?
a shit. I got my money, I settled, and I walked.
Okay,
I
well,
don't want to
you
engage.
should report if there's somebody that's
Why? My
engaging
goal is to
in
never enter
ethical
into a courtroom
conduct.
again.
Lawyers get disbarred all the time. It's very common.
So I'm gonna. What am I gonna go to the bar filled with lawyers and
Yeah,
and make a complaint about one of the
all the
richest,
time.
most?
Yeah, ARDC in
Sorry,
Illinois
I'm
and in
out
other
creating wealth
jurisdictions.
for people.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm out creating wealth for people. I don't have fucking time.
how many lawyers were disbarred for defending the Trump administration? I mean, what a
Quite a
joke!
few,
Please.
quite a few.
Yeah,
Yeah, because they
exactly.
lied
Just
in
for
paperwork.
no, because they defended, not
No,
because they
no, because
lied.
they lied, because they filed documents that were not supported by law. They asserted that they witnessed things that didn't actually
How
happen.
many of the people who went after Trump with bullshit law firms, legal arguments, are going to jail?
Yeah.
When's the district attorney or the attorney from New York with Letitia James? When's she going to fucking jail?
Yeah, for mortgage fraud and for a bunch of other things. I mean, seriously, why do 92% of the people who donate to the Democrat Party, they're part of the bar? Like there's an unbelievable bias in the bar to donating to the Democrat Party, and I think the reason for that is because one party is about making regulations more onerous and about entrapping us further and further in the Byzantine law world, where they can funnel influence and make it easier for them to control people. I mean, I think we should be moving away. I think we should be moving towards permissionless world, and that's what Bitcoin is. And I think that there's definitely good lawyers, but it seems like lawyers always want us to
Uh,
just get further and deeper into the law.
Matt, twist us back to Bitcoin, buddy,
Well, hang
because
on.
I think we're
I will.
digressing
Joe,
down
Joe,
a
this
bunny hole of insanity
Hold
Lauren.
on,
here.
I'm going to dive in here real quick. The question of the
Who
day
are we?
is, how
Professor,
do
there
you,
you
this
are.
is Professor Bitcoin, how do you get non-KYC Bitcoin in 2025?
Let's definitely go to that. Punchy, we'll
Well,
let you
yeah,
like hopefully empty your tank here because
I'm gonna. And
you've been
look. This is recent, so the
yeah, I can
nerves
tell
are
by the
pretty raw
emotion. It's the
around
yeah,
this.
we've touched a nerve here. Go ahead.
They destroyed a lot of lives. Let's put it that way. Not the attorneys, but the company. So what I want to say is, Joe, I understand there are good lawyers, but I think the system, from what I saw, and I got an education, is just it's not about right and wrong. It's not about justice. Ostensibly, the law should be about justice, and that's not wasn't my experience on multiple occasions. It was about who's got more money, who's got the better lawyers, who's willing to push the line on ethics, and that's what I saw. Joe, I just want to ask you a question. I went to my law before that. My entire legal experience was I was the legal officer for my squadron. And by the way, it was interesting. It was the first female deployment, so I was pretty freaking busy. And I had I was basically the consigliere to the ship's captain and my squadron commander. But when I went to Navy Legal Justice School, I wrote this paper, this thesis, that when you voir dire a jury, you shouldn't be able to see them. It should only be written questions that are germane to the case. I shouldn't know that it's a black man who's 80 or a female who's Latino or anything, because as you know, like the O.J. Simpson trial showed us, the case is won in the voir dire. So what do you say, Joe, about my assertion that attorneys should be completely disinterested, but for, in the voir dire, but for the questions pertinent to that case, and they shouldn't know who the juror is, sex, age, background, anything like that, color of their skin. What do you say to that?
I start off in the general premise that for any deficiencies you have in the law, any issues you have, we can always talk about reforms. There's plenty of jury voir dire reforms that have been put in place in most states, and you can always tweak things and get it better. If you don't like certain defense costs, you could do tort reform. There's also all sorts of ways to improve the system. So you have to start with saying we live in an
I
imperfect
mean, that
system.
specific
Yeah,
assertion by
but
me,
and
what do you
I'm
say to
getting to
that?
I'm getting that. To me, to your specific assertion, I think it is somewhat naive to think that people's background, people's history, people's color of their skin doesn't impact their bias, perception, and judgment of issues. I can
Of
tell you from
course it
sit.
does.
I can tell you
Of
from
course it does.
right. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to through the voir dire process. The whole idea is you want to be able to have some say in the selection of your peers, and if you divorce that from any information about who the person is, the color of their skin, their
Why?
age.
Why? What does
If
that
you
have to do?
be-
Why do I have to
because
have
we because
another
you just
white male who's 57 on the jury?
you just conceded that those things impact people's judgment. So if
They do, and they shouldn't. What does that have to do with the case
but
at
they
hand?
do. This is not the world as we wish it was. It is the world as it is, and we do know that. For example, if you have an all white jury judging an African American, that's different. There are outcomes that are different. They convict at a much higher clip.
I'm
Than,
not going to know that it's an all-white jury, Joe. I'm going to ask them questions that are. Would you be able to send somebody to the death
But
chamber
by the
for
way, there's been
for?
some states that have done what you're talking about, and there are proxy questions. For example, if you figure out what magazines they read, I can tell you with a high propensity score whether they're an African American or white. If they say they don't read at all, I can tell you that high propensity score. If they say they read every month, they read the Financial Times, that has a
But
much
you're
higher.
asking them questions that aren't germane to the case, more than likely.
It's your
Like,
opinion.
would you be able to?
Who they are is germane to the case. Who they are is germane to
But
the
Joe,
case.
there's teams of lawyers who hire
Consultants,
consultants
yeah, I've
and
hired them
experts
myself.
just
We
for.
can talk long. I got to jump for a call here, but we can talk a long question. I hire jury consultants routinely. It's normal. It's nothing special. And by the way, both sides do it. Plaintiff bar does it
I
as
know
well.
it's normal, Joe, but normal doesn't make it right.
Again,
What I'm saying is, they
I
hire
started from
whole
the
teams.
premise that you shot down, which is we can always talk about how to make the system better. But we'll talk about this later. I got to
No,
go.
we can make the system better, but I don't see the system getting better. I see it getting much worse. Like the idea that we can do this and we can do that, that's a great throwaway tagline, but it's not getting much better. And what I'm saying is specifically to this question, because they hire whole teams of consultants and specialists who look at body language and what color is that guy and is he a black man? And whoa, OJ, we got all black jurors and he's going to walk. They knew the outcome of that case before they heard one argument in the case. Do you think that's justice? I don't.
Let's go to Chris. He's got his hands
OJ
up.
was OJ was not on my bingo card as the topic of discussion today. Sorry, who had the hand up?
Chris has got his hand up.
I think there were other people ahead of me though, and maybe even have their
I
hands up and
don't
people
see
can't
other
see it.
hands. Let me scroll down.
Well, Dark,
Oh, go ahead, Dirk.
please. This is off topic. I don't want to interrupt. I'm just
Yeah.
sitting here waiting.
So let me give you another absolutely great example of how lawyers have absolutely screwed the little guy, right? So I do a bunch of work uh, for small lawyers that um, defend clients who have been screwed by Wall Street firms. Now, when you open your account at your brokerage concern, you might not know it, but you're signing an agreement that all of your disputes, any dispute, cannot go to court, right? It has to go to arbitration. And the arbitration firm is pre-picked. Usually it's jams. Okay, now what you don't know and what they don't tell you is that in order to fight a jams case, just to actually open one and launch one, it's going to cost you a minimum of $200,000 just to get to a potential trial or a settlement discussion, right? That's the cost of the entire process, right? So when you consider that the majority of Wall Street theft is probably less than $200,000, it's screwing grandma with an annuity or taking the little guy for 50 grand and doing it, a million times until the money becomes, really, really big. That individual, when they come to the lawyer and they say, look, I was robbed out of $130,000. Here's how it was done, right? The case is an obvious slam dunk winner. And the lawyer has to turn around to the client and say, I feel really bad for you, but you signed this arbitration agreement. And because of this arbitration agreement, the minimum cost to fight this case would be $200,000 to $250,000. You only lost 130,000. You can't possibly win. Right? Like that's a perfect example of how the system is so warped towards these big white shoe ivory tower law firms. They've built the system to screw the little guy, right? That wasn't politicians, that wasn't whoever Congress, that was the lawyers at the highest levels of Wall Street working with the trial bar to screw the little guy. And it's so the whole system is so warped into what's become now basically a fuck you sue me game, where, like Puncher was saying, when you go try to take on a Fortune 500 company, see how that goes for you, because they don't fucking care. And worse yet, how about the lawyers that are going after our insurance companies on car accidents, on slip and fall accidents, right? Where the insurance company knows I'm better off writing a $3 million check than fighting this case for the next 6 years. And guess what? They say to you, well, you don't have to pay anything, but your rates are now going to go up for the next 20 years so that insurance company can recap their $3 million. It doesn't matter. Like we can go through 150 different scenarios, and in almost every one of them, the lawyers come out on top. And I just think it's sick. So I'll land the
I want
plane
to
there.
real quick, guys. If you roll into Detroit and you come up I-75 and you drive through Detroit, the first thing you'll notice are just over and over and over again are these high-powered law firms all advertising how you can make money by suing for being in a car accident. Michigan has the highest insurance rates in the country. It's fucking insane to insure a car here, and there's no public transportation in the entire state. If there is, it's a little crappy bus stop in the ghetto that takes 3 hours to get to your job. There's no public transportation. You have to drive. Car insurance is through the roof. And the reason is because these high-powered law firms have been bankrupting the insurance companies and therefore bankrupting every common person in Michigan. It's a fucking tragedy. And fuck these lawyers. When I meet a lawyer, I immediately assume he's a fucking slimeball, and it's never done me wrong. I just assume they're pieces of shit, and it works out great for me.
Yeah, let's go to Chris. You are welcome to change the subject. In fact, it would be much
This is
appreciated.
wildly different. It's going back to what you guys were talking about
I love it.
before.
Let's do it.
By the way, just a side note here. I live in Chicago, and driving through Southwest Indiana, same thing. There's only like 3 billboards you see: Jesus, lawyers, and fireworks. That's it. So you can blow yourself up, find redemption, and sue the pants off of whoever. So same thing like around the
Sounds like a
Indiana
party.
area.
Chris, I thought
Yeah,
we were going to change the subject. I'm
we
kind of,
are, we are, we
this
are.
is
It was
like
just,
nails on a chalkboard.
I
Ranked right up there
sort of.
with politics and everything else for us on a
Oh, you're
Bitcoin
glad
room.
I didn't make the comment about Trump and lawyers.
Oh, dear heavens.
No,
Yes.
no, that
Thank
is
you.
not what we're talking about. So, yeah, because, and I also want to state, I love everybody I know on this stage. I don't know everybody yet. It probably means I'll love you later because I'll get to know you. But I do love everybody on this stage.
Except
Puncher,
Dark Side.
Dark. No, I love Dark. And I
Sure
love
you
Joe
do.
too. He's not up here. Love Gary. Love Loren. I love you too. Even if was it
There was some
Cosmo that's
pause
got
in there.
your
There was some
house
pause in that
bugged?
voice, Chris. There was
There
some
was a little
pause.
bit. There was just. It's only because you keep blocking me on social. Anyway, I love everybody on stage. So you guys made a comment
Guess
about what? Somebody say something.
I was just saying I guess I'm chopped liver, but keep
Oh
but
no,
keep
it's
going, Chris.
Terrence.
Terrence,
No,
I
no,
love you,
it's all
Cosmo.
buddy.
good. I'm fine.
I
Cosmo
love
the
you.
lax rat. Cosmo gets me more than any of you fools because
I have never
we're
blocked you on
lax rats.
anything, by the way, Chris. No
Um,
blocking.
Okay, so you guys made a comment about Coinbase earlier. I did not hear about that, and I do have some stuff on Coinbase because I moved them off of cold storage because I was having problems with codes. Like I lost some shit on cold storage before, and like so. One, we'd love a little bit more like what happened, how bad an issue was that, and two, I need to like fix my shit. And you guys have told me some stuff in the past. I feel like there's some new devices, some new whatever. So I would love like everybody's sort of best take on what's the best way to go like good self storage, not self storage was one of our businesses, real estate self storage, cold storage. Like what's the right device and doing like multi-sig, like what's the best suggestions you guys have, and like what is the exposure right now, even if I take it off today, like are people coming after me with like I don't have 1,000 Bitcoin on there or anything, but like, I just would love to understand that more and get because I'm sure there are other people that are actually having the exact same thought of like, oh yeah, I do need to clean up my self custody stuff.
Yo,
Go ahead,
I
TC.
oh, okay. You want to take that TC? If
well, I
not,
mean,
I'll
you
jump
you
in.
guys caught my ear earlier when somebody asked for more information about acquiring Bitcoin without your identity tied. It's very apropos considering the Coinbase news.
This is to be expected and should continue ad nauseum into the future. In fact, every single service you use on the internet where you've given personal information to, you should expect will be breached eventually. And this includes every bank, every financial institution, every site on the internet that you use where you have put in even an email address, let alone your full personal details, contact information, address, all that stuff. If you want to, have a reality check, there's a website. I don't recommend it for the faint of heart, but if you really want to know, there's a website called Have I Been Pwned, and that's spelled Pwned. Have I Been Pwned will tell you exactly. You can type in an email address, and it'll show you every single leak, every single breach on the internet, on the dark web that your email address is included with, and you can do that with a phone number and other things too. It's kind of wild, but when you realize the truth about the internet, you should realize how insecure the entire thing is. So no surprises, Coinbase got a breach, and this raises the question. Wow, if you're trying to get Bitcoin, our exchange is not the best place to be getting it. And as far as this particular subtopic, this raises serious questions about using an exchange as the primary way to acquire your Bitcoin. So how do you get Bitcoin without your identity tied to it? This is one of the wonderful things about Bitcoin, is that it is pseudonymous. There is no identity on the network itself. And again, I think this is just an incredible part of the learning experience about Bitcoin, is recognizing where Bitcoin ends and where the rest of the world begins. There is this sort of border between Bitcoin's network and then all this other activity that happens related to Bitcoin that's actually, in fact, outside of Bitcoin entirely. You could say that the price is one of those things that happens on exchanges, on order books. Bitcoin, the network, is oblivious to that stuff. So, same thing with identities, names, personal information. None of that's on Bitcoin. So, how do you get KYC free Bitcoin? Is basically you get it directly from other individuals, or you get it directly from the protocol. And so, number one, I would say, this is one of the aspects of Bitcoin mining. If you actually mine Bitcoin direct with the network, you get paid out Bitcoin directly from newly generated coins. Ironically, that transaction is called the Coinbase transaction. That is where Coinbase got its name. But that is, in my opinion, the best way to get Bitcoin is to get fresh Bitcoin generated from the network through mining. Now, there's a ton of different mining pools out there, and several of them do actually take KYC. So you have to pick and choose there. I mine a little bit. I mine with Ocean. And one of the reasons I like Ocean is because they don't ask you for any KYC information at all. And I get paid out directly from the Coinbase transaction when when the rewards add up to enough. The second thing that's a little bit easier to get into, because Bitcoin mining is a very um, sort of competitive and difficult thing to get into. Um, you can get Bitcoin directly from any other individual. A peer-to-peer transaction directly from somebody else is a KYC free transaction. So if you are out in the real world and someone else has Bitcoin and they send it to you on chain, there's no record of your identity with that transaction. And really, it's only the other person that's sending you Bitcoin that has even the possibility of knowing that they're sending it to you. You've basically received a transaction pseudonymously on the network. And in the future, that Bitcoin doesn't have your identity at all associated with it. So, it's one of these things that if you go to like Bitcoin meetups or conferences, you'll have opportunities to get Bitcoin from other people, and it's something that if you're interested in this, it's just as simple as like talking to people and hey, somebody wants to sell some Bitcoin and get some cash. You'll give them cash, and receive Bitcoin straight to an on-chain address. And
But
that's one
by the
way to
way,
get KYC free.
when you do that TC, like you just do a like OTC like trade between each other, is that typically at a discount or a premium to the market, or like how what do you usually see with that?
There's no formality around that. That's entirely up to you and the other person. I
No, I'm
mean,
just
this
saying,
is
like, what do you like? Would people expect? Like, is there like people expect because it's like they're it's not KYC'd, so you
I
expect a
mean, I, I
premium or
I've been to a few meetups and I've seen people do this, and it's basically like, hey, I got $500. Would you sell me $500 of Bitcoin? And you look at the price and boom, you make a
Yeah,
trade.
Chris.
This is not like going to a broker where they're like, okay, let me calculate. This is the current spot price, and let me add my points. It's nothing like that. You're talking about dealing with individuals in the real world, so it really could go any way.
But I think the question he's asking, if it's not KYC, is it trading at a discount or a
yeah,
premium?
that's what I was asking.
But
Thanks,
but
Gary.
that's just it. You're not talking about an exchange where those kinds of formalities are taking place. So it could go either way depending on who you're dealing with. One thing I want to bring up is in these cases, sometimes somebody is motivated, like they need to sell some Bitcoin, and you're helping them out by buying it from them, and you can get a discount in that case. Or in some cases, you're buying products or selling products, and because the person's paying in Bitcoin, they receive a discount because that's a more
But
desired thing.
TC, I think the question is, so let me ask you this question. Let's say that I wanted to do a trade with you and sell you some Bitcoin. Say I wanted to sell you 100 Bitcoin, and they're not KYC'd. Are you going to pay a discount or a premium for that as a buyer?
I mean, again, this is not something that's concrete,
No,
right?
I'm just asking you.
Me
Do you place
personally,
any value on
I
KYC?
do, I do, and so I think that there's definitely. Sorry, I had a phone call just then. There are cases where people will pay a premium to get direct Bitcoin on chain. And I think there's other times where you're doing the other person a favor. Somebody has Bitcoin for whatever reason, they need some cash, and they're willing to give you a little discount accordingly. But what I've seen in my own experience is you just take a peek at the price and you do the translation between the currencies, and you make a trade. And it's not a situation where someone's saying, I'll do that if you tack on two points or something like that. It's real world kind of stuff. So I wanted to bring up one other thing that's should be, people should be aware of, is there are peer-to-peer platforms. There's actually several of them out there. There's peer-to-peer technology that you can use. There's a software called Bisq, BISQ, where you download the software, you run it on your computer, and it connects to other people running that same software. And you literally pair up buyers and sellers direct with each other. And in that case, they can use any form of payment to execute a trade, and it works. And in those cases, you should expect to pay a little premium. Generally, people will sell for a premium of a couple percent at least on top of the spot price. But again, the benefit of getting it direct from another individual, where your exposure as far as your personal information being tied to that Bitcoin is limited to that one individual versus being at a honeypot like Coinbase, where they get breached and suddenly, the whole thing with the Coinbase breach is that it's not just a hacker or some kind of one person who gets this information. This stuff gets sold on the dark web, and within a very short amount of time, it is everywhere. And so now you have countless people coming at you, giving you phone calls, sending you texts, sending you emails, trying to trap you in all of these kind of phishing, social engineering attacks. Um, but back to the question is, like, there are ways to get Bitcoin not on exchanges, and a lot of people, because of events like this, discover that they have a great incentive to go and do those things.
Yeah,
I started mining Bitcoin for that's one of the main reasons. I wanted to diversify as far as like having some Bitcoin that's not tied to a personal identity record.
yeah, Gary. In my experience, usually the higher, like the more you're buying. If you're buying like, 50 grand over like 100 like $1,000, you'll pay the premium, and like at ATMs and stuff, it's like a 10% premium. So I think normally if you're meeting up with someone you'd expect to buy just from somebody else, the more that you want, the higher premium you usually pay. Um, but yeah, Chris, to your point, I mean, I'm personally not a fan of Coinbase. I just wouldn't use them at all. I mean, I'm a big fan of River. I mean, sorry, I got a call. If you're still using Coinbase, it's probably a good idea to get to a Bitcoin only platform, and I think River's a good one. Go ahead, Chris.
No, that I was just going to say that was all awesome, but it was a little bit of a tangent to my question. So I think I appreciate you bringing it back to that, Cosmo. So I actually find moving totally away from Coinbase. That's less of the question. More of the question is like device for cold storage. Like I would love good recommendations. And last I heard from you guys, like I've used Trezor, which I had all kinds of problems with, and then I switched to I forgot what the other one was, and I had a problem. Like it was just a little bit challenging. So I want to like get off all that shit and do. I think Unchained was the suggestion for multi-sig before. This was like several months ago. So I'm curious, like, is that still like what you guys would all sort of unanimously, or at least like majority would recommend? And like, is there a device that again, like, I don't want prepper. Like I'm like a very I want as user friendly as possible because I already fucked up and lost. Before I was in Bitcoin, I lost some like another Litecoin or something. It wasn't a ton, but it was because like I had some user error kind of. It's like fucking complicated. This is not super easy, and I'm not
Hey,
like
I think,
Chris,
yeah,
writing
go ahead.
code.
if you want to DM me, I can help you out personally because it
Please
depends.
do.
It
Yeah.
depends on the person, and I do this all day long. But just in general, yeah, it sounds like a collaborative security model for you is probably best, where you are using an enterprise site that you log on to, and they are holding one enterprise key for you. You can consider that a backup key or whatever, and you have your two. And if you understand the fundamentals, or learn about them, I can help teach you those. It doesn't the device is less important. It's just more important that if you're using multi-sig, that you have several devices and even different manufacturers if you want to harden it even more. you know when you think about it, your Bitcoin is on the time chain. That's where it lives. It doesn't live in any of these devices. And ever since the BIP 39 proposal in 2014, we can easily remember our private seed words, our private seed phrase with 12 words or 24 words. And you don't need 24 words if you're going to be doing multi-sig. You really don't even need it if you're doing single sig. But by having those words, it's just more of where are you going to put them? How are you going to hide them? Are you going to have them on a sticky note on your fridge? Are you going to put them on your hard drive or on your computer? Like none of those are good ideas. So these devices, they really do two main things initially. One is they give you true entropy, because unless you want to flip a coin 256 times or 128 times, or you want to roll dice or look at lava lamps to find true entropy without your bias and without picking words because you want to write a song or a poem, you need to have true, clear randomness. And these devices will give you that. They're essentially random generators. And the second big thing they do is they just prevent that set of 12 words or 24 words from touching the internet. From It's a one-way direction, that the secure element keeps it from going where it shouldn't. So you secure your words. And so I'm a huge fan. I know a lot of people on this stage are huge fans of multi-sig because you don't have to worry about one ledger hack or one bad engineer. You have, two, three, five. You can choose as many keys as you want. And you can also do it fully self-sovereign. You don't have to have Unchained if you're worried about the KYC thing. Going back to what TC said, it's not difficult, but it just takes a little bit of understanding. But for you, I think a cloud security model would be great.
And
That
and
was
it
that
like
was pretty. Oh, sorry. I just want to tack on to Terrence because he actually did a really good job just explaining some of that stuff. I think it's very useful if you have, the concept that the security model in Bitcoin is about your private key. It's not about the Bitcoin itself. Essentially the Bitcoin, I mean, in truth, I don't know if y'all are ready for this, but the Bitcoin doesn't exist. It's basically you have a private key, and what exists is this chain of transactions that detail from this address to that address this amount. and that has to be signed by the right key. So the key is actually a big secret. That's fundamentally what ownership of Bitcoin is can you keep a secret? And there's 2 points to that. One is the creation of the secret, and that's where you want to have these devices that allow you to create a new secret. That's that randomness or entropy that Terrence was talking about that helps you make a really good secret, is it has to have a lot of randomness feeding into it. And you create that secret offline. You're the only human on planet Earth that knows that secret. That means you're the only human on planet Earth that can sign a transaction to move that Bitcoin and get that transaction to the chain. So creating that secret is really, really important. And then how you store that secret over a long time is the other important part. And that's fundamentally ownership and self-custody of Bitcoin, is creating secrets and storing secrets. These tools, these hardware devices are just that. They're tools for doing those things. And I really recommend that people work on the education piece. And then there's a ton of resources that you can go and see what are the options for the different tools that are out there. If people don't know about BTC sessions and the wealth of incredible tutorials on YouTube that you can watch him, showing you how to use dozens of different tools, that's a fabulous resource that's free. And you could spend a couple hours watching him show you how to use a dozen different tools, and you'll all of a sudden have such a better concept of what this requires from you and what your options are. Fundamentally, at the end of the day, you have to decide what's right for you. But if you think about it from this point of view, maybe it's a little bit less intimidating. It really is as simple as you need to create a secret that nobody else knows, that's got lots of randomness in it, and you need to store that secret safely into the future. That's it.
Well said, TC. And let me
Hey,
just finish
if you
this up.
guys get
And
nothing else out of this, we could really end this right now because that is probably one of the most
No, don't
important.
yet. Don't
Yeah,
yet, because
no,
I
I
have a
know.
follow up, but keep
Okay,
going.
I'm gonna let
let me
Terrence go,
let me
but like
just
I just
yeah, I'll
want to.
quickly finish. I'm going to put something in
Yeah,
the
go
nest
ahead.
too, Christopher, that'll give you a high level look at this. But this is exactly why, and I'm saying this for the rest of the audience too, why we say it's so important to secure your words, your 12 or your 24 words, and in your case, you would separate them geographically and perhaps even jurisdictionally, and that's because there is hardware rot. You might lose your device. Your device could get damaged, and at a certain point, you'll plug it in after say 4 or 5 years, and the screen is blank, and you're not going to know what to do. But these words are essentially the DNA. The words are really all you need. I can give you 12 words right now. You punch those 12 words in, and you have it. I've just transferred my Bitcoin to your Bitcoin. But because I have those 12 words, you're going to want to generate your own 12 and move them to your own.
That's why people stamp it into metal, because,
100%.
again, you have to think about how you're going to preserve this into the future. Do not depend on your memory. A brain wallet is not reliable over time. So you need to actually have a way to store this. A lot of people just write it down on paper to start, but you can imagine all the ways that that information on paper can be lost, and you have to figure out how do you store this thing over a long period of time. Again, there's a ton of methodologies and tools, and there's always kind of new exciting, innovative approaches to that over time. So, you want to look for what your options are.
Here,
Yeah, Chris,
this
check
is,
out that video I put
yeah,
in the nest, and then we
okay.
can move on.
I will, and I DM'd you as well, Terrence. I really appreciate the offer. That is a good suggestion, or several suggestions from TC as well. But let me just give, like, I am probably a very large of the middle of the bell curve on Bitcoin holders, in that I want to own it, but it's fucking confusing. I don't want a lot of headache, and the adoption curve of doing all the like all this stuff is just like, we don't want to deal with that. Like, we just want user friendly. And I get, like, there is this very long tail at the end that is like, well, fuck you, then you're going to lose it. But that's also going to hurt the adoption. So there is some equilibrium point where they need to have some degree of user like friendliness. And maybe like, there are the preppers that are like living underground. Like, I don't want to be that guy. Like, I want to like do as little as I can that is like, it's the point of diminishing
Yeah, you don't
returns where I
have
want
to.
to
You're talking
stop.
about two sides of the
Right.
gamut.
No, no, but
We don't want to be
right. And
Mad Max. Yeah.
totally. And but what I'm trying to say is, like, I'm just trying to help you guys realize that all you guys on stage are way at the far end of the bell curve on this. I am living in the middle, and that middle is really important. It's like the
Christopher, how
beginning and
you
the
get
middle.
there is you take baby steps, and this is
No,
something
no,
I think a
totally.
lot
I
of
agree.
people
I agree.
forget, is that they forget that you can just try this with very little risk. You can get a really cheap hardware wallet. They don't cost a ton of money, and you can actually do this secret generation. It costs
TC,
you absolutely nothing, and
totally.
then you can
Which
move
I've
a
done.
small amount of
It
Bitcoin
right,
there and see what that
right,
feels like for a
right.
period of time.
Which I did, and on two different hardware. I'm not trying to, like, this is not about me. I'm just trying to help you guys realize and remember, because I know you guys all know this. You guys are so far at the right end of the bell curve on this. Most of the people are not. And so, like, I have done that like several times. I said I lost, like a couple $1,000s of Litecoin. Like, who gives a shit? A couple $1,000 of Litecoin. But that
If you had
experience will.
Litecoin, you lost the minute you bought it. Just
Yeah, well, I mean,
FYI.
well, I actually bought Ethereum and I converted that into a
Well,
lot
you
of.
lost right away on that too.
No, I did not. I actually didn't. Like, I bought that. I actually made. I won on that transaction because I bought that
But we
versus entry.
digress.
No, no, but we digress. But the point I'm trying to get, this is my ending point, is just remember that a lot of the people that are in these audiences are like Bitcoin curious, or like they have some and they're on,
You know what? You know what? I have
and
one
that's
thing to
it.
say to
That's all I'm
all
trying
those
to say.
people, Christopher,
Yep.
is that I bet you most of them drive a car. And the fact that the potential to crash their car and kill themselves or anyone they're traveling with or other people outside of their car, just the fact that that risk exists doesn't stop them from using the technology and achieving transportation. Bitcoin self-custody is a responsibility on the same level of driving a car. I would say driving a car is a bigger responsibility because life is literally at risk every moment when you do that. So look at it from the point of view as this is just another thing that if you want that magical ability, just like transporting yourself from point A to point B at will, you want the ability to control this asset and control your wealth and do that stuff. You start learning how to do it, and there's a learning curve, just like driving. And you take baby steps. The first time you get on the freeway, you're hardly going 40 miles an hour, and everyone's whizzing by you. But within a few practice rounds, you're up to speed. So that's the way to look at it. This is not rocket science. It's literally, can you keep a secret? That's it. That's Bitcoin custody. Can you keep a secret?
I get it. Again, like, ending on this point is there's just a lot of fear around that. I think people have fear of, like, losing
Chris, we're
it. It's too
beating the living hell
complicated.
out of this topic.
We
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
are, we
Let's
are,
actually
we are.
let's
We're
move
focus
done. We're
on.
done.
and
We're
There,
talk
done.
about
Thank you.
there's a
This was
lot of
very
hands
helpful.
and a lot
This
of
was helpful.
requests to come on stage, Lauren, but there's no room.
I'll drop down. I'm dropping right now. Thanks, guys.
Okay, Terrence, next hand.
Okay, so I think it's Ryan or Puncher. It's been a long time. I can't remember now.
I think it might have been me, but I certainly don't want to take us backwards to the. I really wanted to come up and kind of talk about the puncher Joe.
Yeah, thank you for not taking us back there again.
Right.
Uh,
No,
But
Yes,
no,
I
no,
did.
yes,
no.
I
yes,
did want to just
yes.
say
We're done. We're done with
I've
that.
worked in legal for 25 years selling
Wow.
No, please.
the.
Can we not? We digress horribly. This was just agonizing for many of us.
So let's talk about how we can save 3 fucking cents, River versus Coinbase, and how to store your fucking. I mean, come on, man. Fucking. Do you guys
Punchy,
understand
you're wound today,
that
bro.
we're in a 10,000 year war? Okay, we are fucking breaking the system, right? And if you look, I love talking about Bitcoin and how to save some money and how to store your keys and all that. Fucking go on YouTube and figure it the
Hey,
fuck out.
Puncher, it's like
Okay.
we literally just talked about much more important things, in my
I,
opinion,
I,
the
I
last little
I know.
while with TC's clip of like, hey,
Lauren, give me fucking 2 minutes
two
to
Don't
minutes,
rant
clip me,
go.
without
bro.
interrupting.
Don't clip me, bro. Go ahead,
Not
Puncher.
clipping anybody. But this conversation is all nice and appropriate, and we can get into the weeds, and I love doing that. But I like to think these spaces are about bigger issues most times. I mean, if you don't know about Bitcoin and you're listening in, sorry. There's thousands of fucking hours of YouTube videos and lectures and talks about you. Nobody here is going to do that work for you. You got to go figure it the fuck out, and please do it. But like I said, we're in a 10,000 year war. So if you don't think like talking about the legal, I know guys don't like talking about the legal system and Wall Street and TradFi and politics and all that. But guess what? If you don't understand, A, that you're in a war, but B, how these systems got co-opted, then we are going to walk into the same shit. I'll turn it right back over to the opportune issue, right? Like, it matters. We need to be very vigilant. And if you don't understand how these got co-opted, the things that you used to have faith in, and how they're now perverted, then you're missing the bigger picture. And let me tell you something. Bit bonds are coming. They are going to break fucking everything. And if you don't think those systems are going to try to fight back, and you just think you can just self-custody and not be involved, maybe you can. I get the OG guys get very upset. Oh, this isn't what Bitcoin was originally meant. Look, Bitcoin's going to go where it's going to go, and it's going to break fucking everything. And that system's going to fight back. And it might fight back to the point where we're the bad guys. We need to be wise as serpents and gentle as not sheep, but fucking lions. So, watch Mechanic talking about the op return. I love the fact that guys are fighting back and we're rooting out corruption inside of our own, our own ecosphere. But we're not above it all. We're just not. It's all connected. And I'd love to bring it back to Bitcoin and talk about Bitcoins because it's coming. The OGs don't like it, a lot of them. And I'll bet you it's going to be announced at the conference. And you want to talk about shit breaking? That's coming. And we should be talking about that. That's a very big, big issue. And I'll stop.
You said 2 minutes. I had you on the clock. Sorry, buddy. But I'm just trying to work as many people in to speak as possible.
I know, but the fact that we're muting Joe and muting fucking Dark Side, like, fucking come on, man. Stop it.
We didn't mute. I think Cosmo pushed mute one time, but we let that go pretty far. Terrence, who's up?
I think Rusty Rusty is first. Then Matt, then Fred, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think the end of this is, oh, come on, Matt. You gave me a thumbs down.
Okay, Rusty's done. Hey, Fred, how's it going?
No, I got a lot.
Oh,
It's numerous
Can you
things,
cram
but
your lot into 30 seconds?
okay,
Sorry.
Rusty, half
all right,
over.
but thing. So, there's a giant acquisition or agreement between MasterCard today and MoonPig, which is huge. But this I was listening to Dave Levinson the other night, and he got asked a question about bit bonds, and kind of to my surprise, he was all for it. And he said, I don't think the system's prepared yet, but I see it going there. And I sent that to Dark. I was like, yeah, you need to let's listen back on this, because the guy jumped up and asked a question. And he basically outlined a lot of what we talked about last week on the bit bonds. I was really intrigued because if y'all ever listen to him, he he'll kind of chew some people up and spit them out, but in the TradFi sector. But I was gonna really try and get Gary's input on some of this with all these cards coming in, considering we had um, fold in and all that happening right now, because they're coming in quick with this stuff, and these transaction and payments and stuff. So anyway, but yeah, just to echo, I will say this for Bitcoin related, yes, BTC sessions, I wholeheartedly agree with basically everything in his setup. I like Sparrow, and I like Keystone hardware wallet, and I run a node, so that's my setup. But anyway, any thoughts there?
I
Or
think
I'll
Matt, you're
shut up.
next. Who can use 4 words for every one of your words, Rusty?
Oh, Fred's got me beat. Go ahead, Fred.
Yeah, okay. I got something new. Giovanni yesterday pinged me and he started showing me some new research that he has. I think it would be interesting to people, which is he did a regression on in log space of Google searches versus price. And he found that they, in fact, Bitcoin price is roughly the square of Google searches, which is really interesting. So, there is a definite correlation. The more that price goes up, the more people start searching for Bitcoin, and it's very interesting that this correlation. The correlation is not as great as the power law. It's about 70%, 72% R squared. But if you look at the graph that he showed, it's pretty clear that they are correlated, except for the last year, right? So we're in a very odd situation right now where people are not interested in Bitcoin, but Bitcoin price is going up. So I thought maybe people have an opinion on that.
But Fred, do the searches lag the price or the
Sorry?
opposite? Do the searches lag the price, I assume?
No,
Oh,
that's actually normally no, right? So this is not a lagging thing. It's just generally when the price is going up, people are get more interested in searching for Bitcoin. Except now, except right now, except in 2024, that's not been the case, right? So searches are down. People are not searching for Bitcoin, but the price is going up. So I think this is really interesting that this is happening now, and you know, I don't have any great reason for why why searches are so down right now. But it may be that just right now people are not accepting the fact that we're at 100,000. That's sort of my thing. There's a sort of a disbelief in this price. They're like, yeah, it's going to fall. So that's my thing. And I'd love to talk about bit bonds. I think this is something that I'm really super interested in, and I'm sort of hoping that there's going to be some kind of bit bond announcement at the Vegas. And I'll shut up.
Matt, I think that was you and then Dark.
Sounds great. Yeah. So, the bad guys print money to increase the value of their assets and to depreciate the value of savings and our income. Some would have you believe that inflation's like part of the system and it has to be there, and that it's actually a good thing, that it's a slight warming sensation that gives underlying economic activity more energy. I think that they're just printing too much money into the system on purpose to drive up inflation, which is against our will. So that makes it counterfeit money. And they're not just counterfeiting the money, right? They're counterfeiting basically trust, because we use money to move trust throughout a society, and we also use money to store our wealth across time. So they're really attacking us like across time. They're attacking our ability to take care of our children and the people we care about in the future. And of course, any bad guy's first move after disabling, command and control and comms is to co-opt the resistance and opposition in general. And that's why they hate Bitcoin, because it resists that attack. It's a big danger. And I could go down the Simon route and talk about the 3 city-states that control the world: the Vatican, the DC, and the city of London. But it's enough to say that this power corrupts, and the folks that have access to the money printer are, of course, going to use it for their own benefit. And so I think that's why we all need to keep spreading the word of Bitcoin. To Fred's point, Google searches indicate what people are thinking about. At least they used to. I think now more and more people are using AIs, and I think the data inside of LLMs tells us what people are thinking about more and more. But still, a large part of the world still uses Google. So Google shows us what people are thinking about. If we can get more people thinking about Bitcoin and thinking about the problems that Bitcoin solves, we'll have faster and faster adoption.
What if you use Alta Vista instead of Google?
Man, that was one of my OGs on Netscape. I used to get down with Alta Vista. That was fun.
Ask Jeeves.
I think we have Dark and then Lindog.
I want to go back to what Puncher was saying. Look, I don't beat up on lawyers because I have nothing else to do. I beat up on lawyers because we're in a battle between truth and lies, between good and evil, right? That's the battle that we're fighting. Bitcoin represents truth, not just in the fact that we want to say it does, but in the fact that when you look at the math, right, it's completely open sourced, right? Nobody can tell a lie about the blockchain, about the Bitcoin blockchain. It's 100% auditable and verifiable. You can't tell me that about any other system involved with our government and involved with all of the crap that these lawyers throw at us, right? Like it's literally a matter of lies. Anybody who's ever anybody who's ever litigated any kind of case knows that what Puncher's saying is 100% true. They don't care about the truth. They care about their rules, and their rules are made up by them. So ultimately, like we talk about bit bonds and we talk about breaking the system. Look, the reality that I think we're about to enter is it doesn't matter about Google or retail or who's thinking, what about Bitcoin. We're going into an institutional phase. We're going into a phase where they are going to interlace Bitcoin into every facet of the monetary system, whether you like it or not. And I can assure you that the people benefiting from the fiat Ponzi scheme are going to fight back with a vengeance the likes of which you have never seen. And when Puncher says we are going to become the enemies, you don't understand what he's telling you. Like everybody who's speaking on these spaces, everybody who's hosting on these spaces, we are going to become enemy number one of the people benefiting from the fiat Ponzi scheme. And if you don't think people are benefiting, you don't know what's going on. Look at all the wealth surrounding Washington, D.C. Look at what was going on with USAID. We're not talking millions of dollars. We're talking hundreds of billions of dollars being stolen from us every year, right? And those people that are benefiting from that, they are about to throw the largest shit fit you've ever seen. So, like, when I keep bringing up bit bonds, it's not because, like, I have an affection with this cool little toy. It's because it's going to break fucking everything. We had a good space, Fred. You and I had a great space on this the other day. But it's not just a matter of, well, we're going to see number go up, because number go up is part of the bit bond strategy, right? But what we're really going to see is complete industries get kneecapped, right? Starting with mortgages, going all the way through to annuities and the entire TradFi space. And it's going to work its way into every nook and cranny, every corner of our traditional finance system. So, like, when I keep bringing up bit bonds, and I've been talking about it, I feel like I've been screaming into the wind for 5 months now. This is coming, like it or not, want it or not, and it's going to break the system. Now, what we're going
Yeah.
to be left with is a new system that I think will look a hell of a lot better, but it's going to be painful. And that's not a doom and gloom perspective. The real doom and gloomers are on the TradFi spaces, talking about how the Fed's going to inject liquidity and we're going to do repos and everything's going to be fine and the system will go on forever and we've never seen anything like it. That's all bullshit. It's complete bullshit. I'll land the plane there.
Hey,
You
Dark.
landed the
I,
plane
I,
on
I would have,
bullshit. Hang on, give me 1 second,
guys.
Punch, and then I'll pass it back to you. Just for those of you who have joined in, we have about 4 topics of conversation running simultaneously. So if you just hopped in and were confused, and feel free to jump into any one of those 4. I think we got onto the lawyer bit because we started talking about the Coinbase thing, and I think Dark had either. I think you were actually mentioning one of your tweets about it and saying, the lawyers got us into this mess and blah de blah. So we have been going deep on the lawyer thing. We've been going deep also on Bitcoin and how to properly self custody, i.e., get your coins off of Coinbase if at all possible. And so feel free. That's kind of where we are hanging right now with 4 or 5 open topics of discussion on the table. Go ahead, Puncher.
Yeah, look, I hate to be so passionate about this, but some things really came together in my mind. Fred made a great point in his podcast with Dark. You should listen to it. There's another gentleman called Marilyn Hoddle who put it together in behind the scenes on what these bit bonds are going to do, and that it's coming. And then I had confirmation yesterday that that is the plan from the best source. I talked to him. I said, listen, we've got this theory that bit bonds are coming and that it's going to come through 21 and this is how it's going to work. And the person just was like silent and said, you're not wrong, but I can't talk about it. So this is coming. And I just want, look, I'm all for self-custody and talking about why Bitcoin's awesome and all that, but we're about to see some major, major disruption. And, you can sit it out and just self-custody and live life and,
I'm sure you sound
but
like that guy
I
in
think we
Billions
need,
saying it. I am not uncertain.
I am not uncertain, Fred. And I would love to, I don't want to change the direction, but if somebody DM'd me, they got cut off, they wanted to change back and everyone was like, no, please don't. Ryan, actually, I'd love him to come back up. And I think I interrupted him too. I said, dude, please come back. Like, I'm getting a lot of DMs. People are like, yeah, I want to talk about that. Look, I want to talk about all the other stuff, but there's some things that are like mundane and interesting, mildly interesting. And there's some things that are like, when you're talking about the change of everything, I think that's something we should talk about in this space and prepare people for what's coming. And I think Dark and Fred can talk very deeply about that so that everybody can prepare. That's all I'm saying. It's not going to happen 5 years from now. It's going to happen like 10 days from now, potentially. That's all. I hate to be yelling and screaming at Joe. I like Joe. I like Joe a lot, actually. But I want to have it out with Joe. I want people to understand how things got corrupted and why we got to be really, really careful that that doesn't happen to Bitcoin. Because this is, make no mistake, our last shot to fix things. If this doesn't work for whatever reason, or it gets co-opted, we're fucked. So that's it.
Very true. When you say you like Joe a lot, I kid. Nakamoto.
Strictly platonic.
Okay.
Hi, fellas. How are you?
How you doing?
Hey, I was in line.
Great.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see any hands. Sorry, Lindog, and then we'll go back to Nakamoto. Thanks for correcting me, Terrence. I
Yeah, no
apologize. Go
problem.
ahead, Lynn.
I just wanted to say to Punch and Dark and Fred and all of you guys that are super connected, God bless you. You know, we sit on these spaces, we absorb as much as we can in our little brains, and then thank God we got you guys in your big brains. And I could not agree more. I've had my hand up since basically we started to talk about this Maryland Hoddle post and then Dark's repost of that, and how there's no single more important tweet that you're going to read than this, right? And so if we could, you know, get that conversation pointed back to what we're going to do to prepare, let's talk about it. He had a comment in there where literally it could start to unwind the Fed within months. I really want to understand that timeline and what you guys think about that. But I couldn't agree more with what Puncher just said. But anyway, I'll land there.
Nakamoto.
Hey guys, real quick,
Hi, people. Lovely people.
Maryland's in the audience. I don't know if he'll come up and speak, but maybe you want to throw him an invite.
Hey, Loren, how are you doing, guys?
Super.
And also, great. I just want to interrupt a little bit. I want to make a small talk with your permission. Is it possible? Loren, it's your space.
Usually, small talk has connotations of naughty things happening afterwards, but hey, why not? What the hell?
Inside voice, Lauren.
Yeah.
Keep that inside.
Am I yelling? Am I
I,
yelling? I
I, I-
apologize.
and I have one more question also to pose it to Fred. If that is okay, I will personally pose it here.
Yeah, jam in there, buddy.
Right. Fred, is it cool? Are you there?
Hey, Nakamoto, just go ahead and talk or ask your questions. We'll
Yeah.
take it from there.
Yeah, I'm talking about Bitcoin. Okay. You all can get me right, you all can get me wrong. So I just want to clarify my stance. Okay. I was in the form of forming Bitcoin since 2008 with three people. I won't tell personally their full names. I will just give you their first name. All right.
No,
To
we
start
want
with, to
their
believe.
email address and oh wait, that's Coinbase. No, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. To start with, to believe myself, Nick Hall, and one guy called Mike. I don't know whether it was Michael or some other Mike, because you see, in 2012, I had a severe bike accident. I had forgotten about Bitcoin. I had mined more than roughly about 500,000 coins, lost all my keys, and one last wallet that was balanced, which had 31,000 left. And I transferred 9,000 coins to Nick. All right. I think that's the wallet everyone is talking who exchanged Kraken. All right. So what I want to do is, if you can, or anybody can get in hold of Nick and get back to me.
Hey, I don't know. I'm having some technical issues or something, but I seem to have lost
I think you
who was that?
accidentally fat fingered the remove from stage button.
Yeah, I think I might have accidentally hit mute first, followed by the remove from stage because my co-hosts weren't as quick on the trigger as I was. Anyway,
My
no,
bad.
I'm kidding. Jesse, buddy, welcome to the stage. Good to see you.
Yeah, that was interesting.
I understand
Took us off track
there's a
there.
chance we'll meet you in real life. I'm looking forward to that, sir.
Yes, no, it's 100%. It's 100% now. All the plans are coming. I can't wait to hang out with everybody. So it's gonna be awesome. Um, yeah, I just sorry I missed the beginning of the conversation this morning, but loved the sort of current talk that I was listening to once I came in, and I'll just add on to that. I'm always people. If you hear me speak on these stages, I'm always talking about the game theory aspect of it, and I keep saying those words, and I think it's a good idea for folks if you're in this room. Check out game theory, look it up, and just try to understand how that works because it's really an important element of Bitcoin. In fact, I think you could define Bitcoin as a game, and there are many different definitions for Bitcoin. And Tomer, I love how you talk about definitions and the importance and the meanings of words. But in some respects, you could define Bitcoin as a game, and that game theory is part of the growth model that's baked into the math and the engineering of the actual system itself. And so when Dark talks about like these things happening, or Fred, I guess Fred dropped, but I think Fred has a good handle on this as well. Dark, I didn't get a chance to watch the talk with you and Fred, but I'm going to go back and watch that. But um, it's like these things can happen much faster than we think, and I'm not saying they will, but if you first start from the place of, okay, I've studied Bitcoin enough to believe that we're at the beginning, which means it has plenty of room to grow, right? I argue that it can grow 100x, 200x, 300x. I'm the same arguments that Mallers and Saylor make. And if you get anywhere close to that belief system and you understand game theory, and you then realize that humans are really bad at timing things, we're horrible at timing things. Like we can't estimate the time of when things are going to happen historically. And this is such a big shift. This is a paradigm shift that changes everything. And so we can't really predict the timing very well. And because of the game theory aspect, my argument is that it's going to happen much faster than most of us assume. And I would believe that I think Dark agrees with me there because once it's out in the wild, you cannot stop it. That's the power of Bitcoin's engineering. That's the power of the design. And that's what allows the adoption curve to happen. And we're right at the precipice where it's about to frickin' explode. So, Matt, yeah, I see your hand up.
Hey, Jesse. Oh, Matt, real quick. Sorry. Tomer, I appreciate you DM me. You're like, don't be hyperbolic about it. I don't know the timing of this, but I strongly suspect over the past 2 days that this is going to happen very quickly. And the reason I'm passionate about it is because there's certified financial planners on here and guys who sell annuities who are curious about Bitcoin and guys who are in real estate. And this is going to affect you tremendously. And it's better to be 3 years too early than 3 seconds too late. You could get wrecked. And I know that sounds hyperbolic, but I'm just telling you, we should talk about these things so that at least someone, even if they're new to Bitcoin, and we start talking about Bitcoins and what it's going to do to TradFi and what it's going to do to real estate and what it's going to do to annuities and the value of your home. I think it would be a disservice to not, because we understand it, or at least we think we do, and because we're pretty prescient as Bitcoiners, to talk about those things so that people can at least get a sense that maybe I should make some changes. Because what's coming, the tidal wave and the tsunami that's coming, you don't want to be in front of it.
I think we're at Matt Man, actually, and then Tomer. Am I right?
Yeah,
Terrence, is that correct?
yeah, perfect.
Yes,
Nick,
Okay,
sir.
Matt.
I'm really loving the conversation. The thing about technology is it can change the dynamics, to the last couple speakers' points, very quickly. And technology hasn't really come for money in a way that any of us remember, because the last real breakthrough was coinage, and that was a long, long time ago. Um, Obviously, the Medicis did like LPGP, and there was lots of financial engineering and stuff like that. But like honestly, money itself hasn't been hacked in a while. Um, Now, what have we done since the 70s for sure? We've hyper financialized and virtualized basically the entire economy. And we've even bet into the future, and then we've levered that up. So, the world is very, very, very squishy, and there's a lot of pretend world for every unit of real world. And unfortunately, and what I like about Bitcoin, I'm saying unfortunately for the TradFi folks, Bitcoin is absolutely scarce. It doesn't care about the demand. Only so much issuance is going to be generated, and there's only so much room, inside the real estate. So ultimately, Bitcoin's future is to capture a lot of this monetary premium that's been injected by the central bank printing, and there really is no upper limit of to where Bitcoin could go. But there is, because there is no lower limit to how low fiat can go. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
Yes. Here, here. Before we go to Tomer, hey, what podcast did you just recently do that I saw a part of?
Probably
Matt and
me
I.
and Tim Kotzman on
Yes, yes,
True
yes.
North.
True. Okay. What? That was the True North pod.
Yeah, yeah, it was
Oh
great.
yeah, that was good stuff. I didn't watch the whole thing, but the parts that I did see was
If you like
really good.
technology
And
stuff, I actually did Robert Breedlove, and we did like AI and the history of technology for maybe 2.5 hours. And that was, I had a lot more room to run on that one. But with Tim, we only had like 45 minutes. So, but anyway,
and the Robert Breedlove one, I assume hasn't come out yet, correct?
no, yeah, it came out like about a month or a month and a half ago. But I haven't really
Okay,
been.
okay,
Yeah, I'll share a link with you.
cool. Sounds good. All right. Sorry, Tomer.
Huh. Where do I want to? What do I want to say here? I think what I don't want to say that Puncher is wrong. I want to say his excitement and his uh, fear may turn out to be, from a timing perspective, a lot longer. And it's not intended as a personal criticism. It's just like, as when I first got involved in Bitcoin, people were talking about hyper Bitcoinization and game theory, and they had been for 4 years, and they had been expecting like some overnight event to happen where we would all wake up, nation states will have adopted it because of the game theory, and it all happened overnight, and it didn't happen overnight. And I'm gonna tie it back into like when the internet, when the World Wide Web first became a thing, and the graphical user interface to the browser became a thing, and Netscape went public, and it looked like it changed everything. We've it changed a lot in the financial world, but it took a lot longer for it to really develop and hyper internetify the world, right? Like we're all here on the internet now, but it was 1996, I think, when Netscape went public, maybe 1997. And so we're a good 30 years in to this point where everything's been hyper internetified. So I just want to caution people that, if it doesn't happen in the next 2 days or even in the next 10 days, it doesn't mean that the predictions and the direction that things are going in are wrong. It's just that things take a long time to happen. There's a lot of inertia in people's minds, so that even if a thing is clear and true and present, people still don't act and move because there's so much inertia from the momentum of where things have been and where they appear to be going safely, especially when you look at things from a linear perspective. So um, I absolutely encourage people to take the advice to begin to educate yourself and make moves. Don't make panicked moves, but make moves to prepare for this future where nation currencies go away or depreciate more quickly, and something like Bitcoin, and Bitcoin in particular, in fact, becomes the de facto global reserve currency, unit of account, all that kind of stuff. But um, but don't be disappointed. Like, don't place your bets on it happening in the next year. And if it doesn't happen in the next year, presume that everything's been wrong. When you zoom out, what you see is this. We're 16 years in now, 16 years of going from zero to $1 to $10 to $100 to 1,000 to 10,000, now to 100,000. So we've had, if you count the first one as a 10x, even though it's an infinite x, we've had six of these 10x's, and a couple more. Even if it takes another
Hey,
16 years, is
Tomer.
huge, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Tomer, I'll let you go. So let me be a little more specific. I have when I graduated college, high school, college. A lot of my friends went to work for a company called
They had colleges back
Planko.
when you were.
Yeah, imagine that. And all these guys made tons of money. I mean, they did really well. They sold annuities, they sold insurance products, and they're still doing that. And I love these guys. They're not Bitcoiners, but I'm slowly trying to orange pill them. But there's some guys who sell annuities. And I texted one of my friends, I said, look, man, you're going to get wrecked. Look at this Strife product. Look what this is. This is going to destroy your business. And he said, well, that'll never get through regulators. I go, dude, he was so uninformed. I'm like, this is in the wild. This is out there right now. I can buy it today. And they are on aircraft carriers in their lives that take time. If you own a bunch of real estate as a store of wealth, you're on an aircraft carrier that takes time to turn around. And I truly believe, and I agree with you, that things take time. But some things have connected, some dots have been connected to me, both at an official level and through Fred and Dark Side Talking and Maryland Hoddle. I just think it's going to come much quicker right now. And I'm trying to get these guys to A, understand Bitcoin, but B, make some changes
Yeah.
so that the people I love
Well,
don't
this
get
is
wrecked. I'm not trying to be
no,
hyperbolic.
this is where I agree, and I'm being very careful. Not that I don't want to start an argument with you because I consider you a friend. Purely on the ideas. I think I'm just trying to add some texture to what you're saying. Like this stuff sometimes takes.
You're the yin to my yang. I love
It
it.
takes a lot longer. Sometimes the changes play out differently than you thought they would, not in terms of what gets harmed, but what plays out. Like, my I spent most of my career at a newspaper company, like from 1995 or 1997 until 2012. So I spent a long time in the newspaper industry, and like you said, with regard to people selling annuities. These people were selling advertising on printed paper with no targeting, and a day to produce and no measurement results, like something that people would just say um, today makes no sense. But and the overwhelming majority of people employed in that industry did not adapt, did not change, and by the time they saw what change was coming, they were just hoping that the missile wouldn't hit before the retirement date. Like, even to the point of the CEO of the company, dragging his heels on decisions that were important to make, just so that they would happen after his pension vested or whatever. So I've seen this, and it's incredibly frustrating. And if you find yourself in that position and you still have a long runway of work time or savings time to go, and you don't make these changes, you are headed for a brick wall. You're at a dead end. So I don't like that's not what I want people to think, that like if you don't believe Puncher, that nothing's going to happen. But I just say, like, it's the fact that it takes longer than many people predicted that caused some people to say, oh, they were wrong. Like, I at the newspaper company, I was pitching starting up a digital division in 2005 or maybe 2004, and I was getting pushback from all the executives because they said, didn't the internet go away? Like, you're not saying anything that consultants didn't tell us in 1999, and then the dot-com boom came, and then it crashed and the internet went away. What's different this time? And so the fact that it took 4 years longer than consultants predicted for things to really ramp up led a lot of these people to rest on their laurels or think that winter isn't coming, and that was the mistake. And so that's why I want to add this texture, because if it doesn't happen by the conference at the end of this month, that doesn't mean it's not happening, right? Like, Bitcoin is
Totally.
taking over.
Well, I think here's the analogy, and we'll go to hands. I apologize. I see a lot of my friends and family as the frog in the pot of boiling water, and they just turned on the flame, and it feels good, and they're doing well. And just like you said, over time, it's gonna be hard enough for the frog to jump out of the pot. It's gonna be impossible when the water starts boiling and all the frogs are trying to save themselves. So you gotta think ahead. It might not happen at the Bitcoin conference, but it's coming. The stars are aligning, and it's just time to jump out of the pot. That's all.
Yeah. So, what's really interesting, Tomer, and I think you made some really salient points. 6 10x's to get ourselves to where we are today, which is an asset that's, I would say, a serious a serious financial asset. But just consider this: the next 10x breaks the entire system. The next 10x results in a $20 trillion print. Right? That's what happens if Bitcoin goes to 1 million. Right? You have just printed $20 trillion. Right? And what does that do to everything? Right? And that's where we're at. Right? So we've made it to from basically a micro cap technology concept to an extremely serious, one of the top 5 financial assets in the world, right? But what happens when you 10x from here? So the amount of time we're talking about is extremely compressed. Add to that the Secretary of Commerce is launching a Bitcoin treasury company. He also owns or runs Cantor Fitzgerald, which is a primary dealer of U.S. treasuries, one of very few, right? And you understand that they've now included SoftBank, one of the largest piles of fiat capital in the world, right? With Jack Mallers, arguably an extremely bright young mind, and you can see where this is headed. Everything is compressing extremely rapidly. And I would argue with you that that time between Netscape browser and to where we are now, it sort of mimics to me where we were in 2021. We'd had our crash, right, which was really engineered by the government, and now we're back significantly higher than where we were at those highs. So I think from my perspective, if you think you can wait it out, if you think time's on your side, I think you're wrong. Does that mean something's going to happen in 10 days? I have no idea. But I know something's going to happen in the next 52 weeks, right? Like this is all just happening so fast, right? And how
Yeah.
how did they put this together? Like, think about this 21 thing, right? Sailor's kind of cool. He's got his little thing on the side, right? He's got strategy. He's been buying Bitcoin, and everybody thinks he's sort of the god of Bitcoin or whatever you want to make of him because of his stack. But he is small potatoes compared to Cantor Fitzgerald and SoftBank. Like that is two of the largest players in the entire world of the TradFi world. And for them to be jumping into Bitcoin, right, with the concept that they're going to acquire more Bitcoin than Sailor, tells me they're not just saying that, they're going to do it. Like, if there's one thing I've learned on the street, when the largest players tell you something, they're going to execute, because that's what they do, and they have the ability to execute. So yeah, I have no idea if it's 10 days or 21 days, but I don't think it's 4 years. I think it's
So just a quick,
sure.
one quick counterpoint, because I don't want to make the same counterpoint. What I saw happen with technology versus media, because that was where, and telecommunications, was as much as the big companies said they were going to do the internet. Remember a company called Time Warner that
Sure.
merged with
Yeah,
AOL,
absolutely. Yeah.
and remember Fox bought MySpace. Like, the story was the same over and over. It was technology companies in the end, at the end of the day, that were the winners, right? Like, when we look at the Magnificent Seven, wow, that's heavyweight, that's heavily weighted in companies that actually, that didn't bring strength from the previous generation. They didn't know how to adapt and transform their strength into the technology world, whereas the technology ate them. And I think this is where Mark Andreessen's really clever comment, "Software is eating the world," is relevant. And the competency of a financial firm, and like we've seen this before, back when in 2017/18, blockchain was this really big thing, and Bitcoin was booming, and so were altcoins. And the banks formed a consortium that where all the biggest banks in the world formed something called R3. Like, I think it still employs some people, but it had no impact on the world. And part of it is the frame of reference of what the world looks like is is very different for people coming from one area and to another, where they don't know what they don't know when it comes to technology. And this is, whether we're laughing at a financial analyst with years of experience talking about Bitcoin not being worth something because teeth aren't worth something, it just shows like how far they miss the mark, and how unknowledgeable they are about how to resource a thing. And so that to me is the thing that I say, the big boys may say that they're going to take over some industry, but if they don't actually understand the mechanics of it and the way that it works, they they can throw their traditional weight into the ring, but it ends up, ultimately their momentum ends up getting used against them, or they're unable to transform their momentum into that sphere. And I think that that's going to turn out to be like Bitcoin's going to be stronger than the tools that many of these people think they have, whether they're financial tools or political tools, because it doesn't care about their fiat or political institutions and rules and regulations.
Yeah, no, I mean, great points. Let me just make the counterpoint, which is because
This
because
is fun.
I absolutely lived through exactly what you're talking about, right? Time Warner, all of these guys were trying to figure out how to make it work, right? But this is something different, right? They understand Bitcoin, right? Like when I talk about Cantor Fitzgerald being a primary dealer of US Treasuries. They understand the Treasury market as well as anybody in the world. Okay, I mean they understand the demand, they know who the buyers are, they understand the leverage, they understand it to a level that nobody else can. Okay, throw in there SoftBank, which has hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars that they have access to. And these guys are going to fix the US Treasury borrowance issue, and they're going to use Bitcoin to do it. Right? Like that, I am 100% convinced of that. The only question is when and how long. Right? So to Puncher's point, right? If you are in the annuity business, if you are in the real estate business, that this introduction of hard money into a fiat Ponzi scheme is going to break it. It's going to break it to the likes of which nobody can possibly imagine. Does that mean we're going to be eating cats and dogs under bridges? No. It just means the system is going to break and it's going to reinvent itself because the path we're on is not sustainable, right? And kudos to Saylor for introducing all of these products because he has opened their eyes. Look, Wall Street is a monkey see, monkey do place, right? And they get it. So in one respect, I agree with Chanos. Maybe MicroStrategy is overpriced in comparison to Bitcoin. But on the other respect, remember, by the way, it's very important to also know Chinos is not shorting MicroStrategy, right? He's shorting the MicroStrategy MNAV. Now, he may be right, he may be wrong. He's certainly probably going to be right in the short term because if I was Saylor, I would sell my MNAV down to 1.5 and buy as much Bitcoin as I can. So I agree with him on that front. But he's buying Bitcoin against that, dollar for dollar with his shorts in MicroStrategy. So it's not a negative play on Bitcoin, right? Ultimately, these guys all know what's coming. They were in the same room together, right? They have a plan, and they're going to execute on that plan. This is very different than media companies and technology companies trying to figure out how they're going to make the internet work. This plan has already been proven out. When you see what Misty has done and these other yield max products have done, if you think that Wall Street isn't looking at this and saying, wait a minute, like, how in the world are people earning 80% a year on a yield back strategy? And if they can do it, we can do it. And that's exactly what they're going to do. Again, I really encourage everybody to read Marilyn's post. Marilyn Hoddle. He nailed it.
Marilyn's in the audience,
I
bud.
know.
Marilyn's up to speak.
Oh, he's up to speak. Marilyn, how you doing, brother?
Doing well, Dark. How are you?
Good, man. We had a little chat this morning. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for coming up, man. Why don't you kind of lay out how you see this unraveling with 21, the US Treasury, like because everybody has this view that bit bonds are going to be issued by the US government and the government's going to hold the Bitcoin and that which seems so far outlandish, right? Why don't you take it to the next level and explain to the audience how you see this playing out and how Cantor Fitzgerald, SoftBank, 21, how do they fit into this equation? And like, what's the product that we're actually looking at?
So I've spent 5 years kind of lurking around and digesting a ton of different data from spaces to podcasts, looking for social cues from key influencers, and basically it all came together because we couldn't find a key for how do you transition from the mess of the TradFi system over into basically the fourth turning over into a Bitcoin standard without completely blowing up the system. And actually, it hit me last week when you were in Fred's space and you guys were talking. And one of the social cues that I picked up on was Jack Mylor since the announcement, who, in my opinion, is very Bitcoin based. Basically said without a shadow, yeah, we're going to have more Bitcoin than um, than strategy. And I'm like, what capital markets is he tapping into? And it only made sense that he was tapping into essentially the sovereign debt market. But it wasn't until your space last week with Fred that I was like, that's 21. That's how they fit into the whole picture. Now, the mechanics of all that, that's left up to you guys to kind of propagate on. But for me, I just saw the key, and then that's when I put out I actually called a good friend of mine first and said, I think I figured it out. And that's when I put the post out. And it's caused a lot of speculation around it. But I think that's the key to how we do the transition. But if you're in Maller's seat, who is, again, Bitcoin based, right? He's a true Bitcoiner. I don't think he's going to move in the TradFi without having basically a way to help fix the entire system on a Bitcoin standard. For him to confidently say that he is essentially going to have more Bitcoin than Sailor, the only possible mechanism for him to do that is essentially to tap the sovereign debt market. So, and pull out the volatility.
Yeah, so why don't I just take it to like a next level by explaining how I think it's going to happen using your thesis, right? So we all know that if the government tried to buy Bitcoin and tried to escrow it and do like the new markets approach, that is extremely messy. It would take congressional approval. It's a very difficult road to travel, and it's hard to understand, how the government would handle such a scenario. Now, in what I think you're laying out, and what Fred and I were kind of proffering was that y- this 21 company can easily take a structured product where they go to the government and they say, look, we'll do a trillion dollars of US treasuries, right? And we're going to go ahead and give you the money at 1.5%, right, for 10 years. Well, for the government, that's a slam dunk winner. We'll happily sell you a bond. You give us the money and we'll give you 1.5% for 10 years. That's a win. Everybody understands that. Now 21 then takes that money and they go ahead and they buy Bitcoin. They buy the 10%. They're the ones that are issuing the structured product. And they then turn around to the investors that are buying these bonds and they say, look, we're going to guarantee you 4.5% over this 10-year time period. Okay, so you're guaranteed the 4.5% you would have gotten had you bought the debt from the US government. Plus, we're going to give you the upside kicker of the Bitcoin. And they're the ones that manage the entire process. They're the ones that earn the yield on the Bitcoin. They're the ones that earn the appreciation on the Bitcoin. And at the end of the 10 years, they're the ones that keep the Bitcoin.
Correct.
Okay, the investor, right. So the investor ends up getting back, let's say the investor ends up with an 8 or 9% return, right? Well, that's a massive win for the investor. It's a massive win for the government. And obviously, it's a massive win for 21 because they end up with the Bitcoin. So what we're talking about is a structured product, right? And the only ones that could possibly do this would be Cantor because they are the primary dealer to the US government, and SoftBank because they have the capital.
Take
Right now, as far as generating the 9% return over the 10-year period, that's where you use the yield max sailor harvesting the volatility strategy and the upside.
take it a step
Is that
further.
correct?
Correct. Take it a
Go ahead.
step further. Another connectivity point would be um, proposed U.S. sovereign wealth funds could have connection back into the cap structure for 21 when it's ultimately divvied out. Because what I don't understand yet, I haven't been able to figure out, is how we connect that hoard of Bitcoin back to the U.S. government.
Right, and does that play into the strategic Bitcoin reserve And maybe, maybe the answer is to get this whole plan started. It doesn't, right? I don't think it has to in the very beginning, because the government's getting a huge win, which is that they're borrowing money for 10 years at 1.5% when the current market is 4.5%.
Correct. It solves that
Right?
major
From the
issue.
government's perspective, it's just
Guys,
a
add to
slam
that.
dunk
Add to
victory.
that. Doc, sorry. Add to that. Cynthia Lummis coming out and saying, I look at my grandkids. We are going to pay down the U.S. debt with Bitcoin. And you go, that's quite a claim. She made that like 2 days ago. I go, how could she make that claim?
Well, it's a two-sided approach, isn't it? Because basically, if you're looking at what Lutnick's saying, we have to grow the U.S. balance sheet, right? Or we're going to leverage the U.S.'s balance sheet, so asset side of the equation, to basically fuel productivity, GDP growth. So we're going to grow out of it, but we're also going to secure assets that will also appreciate ourselves out of it. So we're going to hit from both sides.
So why not just grab the 2.5 million Bitcoin from Coinbase in one fell swoop and write a check and say, you guys pay everybody out? That seems to me like the nuke. We're talking about when TradFi fights back, Coinbase having more than 10% of all Bitcoin. That's the nuclear weapon to fight back with. Am I?
Isn't
I
isn't
They
that
don't
the
have
death
to.
of the
Yeah, but
In
system?
this scenario, they don't
Isn't
have
that
to.
the death of the
well,
system? Because you're
yeah,
no
if you
longer
do that,
capitalistic anymore.
yeah, if you do that, you destroy the United States, right? Like that's the absolute destruction of rule of law.
well,
The
there's a precedent that we're just 6102ing
Yeah, but
digital gold
again,
here.
Before the
yeah, but
digital age.
remember the 6102 attack was so long ago. No one here, has any memory of it. So if you go in and you try to seize assets today at that scale, right? Nobody would ever invest in the United States again. It would be counterproductive. It may sound productive, but it would be counterproductive. What we're suggesting is that they actually have a plan. That was the formation of 21 to begin to solve the US debt-based Ponzi scheme and to replace it with a Bitcoin-backed growth mechanism, right? Like that makes a lot more sense. And again, if the US government can borrow money for 10 years at 1.5%, I can't even begin to tell you how productive the US government would become, right? Like the deficit would disappear, right? The amount of problems that would be solved so far outweigh the problems that would be caused. And the other thing is, if they were to seize the Bitcoin, right? If they were to even if they were to create, let's call it a risk-free rate of 14%, right? That causes massive problems. So what they have to do is they have to thread the needle, right? And if that means
Correct.
enriching 21, because 21's not going to go ahead and promise a 14% return. They're going to go ahead and promise a 4.5% return, right? With an upside kicker. So that doesn't change the risk-free rate of money right away. It happens slowly over time, and industries will be able to adopt to it through this structured product. So from a perspective of how do you do this without destroying the system, this is the way you do it, right? You do it slowly over a matter of five years, right? And the system has the ability to amoeba like adapt to all of these vast changes. But what does it do to Bitcoin price? Look, this entire strategy is a number go up strategy. What makes it work is that number goes up, right? You now have Cantor, SoftBank, and believe me, they won't be the only two, right? Like this will proliferate around the globe like wildfire.
But
Yeah, can I just build on what you're saying there, Dark? Because I really think everyone's on point with their discussions, and I agree with everything you're saying, Dark. And Marilyn, I like your thesis. Back to what Tomer was saying, and to bring it back to what Punch was saying around urgency and timelines. Like you can just see, I mean, what everyone's talking about here are unique scenarios, whether it's Loomis, whether it's 21 Capital and their plan, whether it's the government SBR strategy, and this is the game theory. Again, Bitcoin will not wait. And so it's going to continue to accelerate. If one of these things doesn't work, if 21 doesn't work, something else will crop up. I guarantee it. And so back to Punch's point, in terms of urgency, and I think Tomer and Punch are both correct at the same time. Tomer is saying, we don't know when this is going to happen. So it could take another year, 2 years, 4 years. We don't really know. There could be black swan events. We just don't know. But at the same time, Bitcoin's not going away. And so if basically you're not going to miss Bitcoin, right? But you might miss the S curve. I mean, Bitcoin's just going to keep eating stuff. I tend to think we're at the bottom of the S curve and it's going to shoot up and then it's going to flatten out again. But I don't know when that shooting up is going to happen. What we're all saying on this space is that the writing is on the wall and it's sure looking good for an explosion. You know, I would not, again, I always say this, I would never have said this kind of stuff 4 years ago or 5 years ago. But with this administration, we're still in year one of a United States administration that is hardcore, and I mean hardcore. Let's call it what it is. Bitcoin. It's not crypto. They know it's Bitcoin. There's enough now coming out that we know for sure they've dropped crypto. They know it's Bitcoin. The world knows it's Bitcoin. And so here we go. The train has left the station.
So let's play this out for a quick second. Take it and speculate that, okay, this has Saylor's fingerprints, it seems like, all over it. So you take it back, and Saylor was meeting with the Trump family early on, and then the plan gets kind of formulated. I don't know if any of this is true. This is, again, just my speculation, thinking outside the box. Then we go to the crypto summit in DC, right? And we've seen stuff coming out of like the All In podcast, where David Sachs specifically sat down in the All In podcast and was like, no, it's Bitcoin, right? Shocked everybody. He's a longtime shitcoiner from the standpoint of soul and so forth, but he explicitly came out and said Bitcoin only, right? They did a strategic reserve and then strategic stockpile, two separate asset classes. Every step of the way, they have continued to validate the Bitcoin only thesis for what this asset class is, right? Which is pristine collateral. Then you go into the crypto summit in DC, and Matthew Pines from the Policy Institute, who I think has a strong kind of role in this whole process, posted a picture of an empty room. And he put a post on that. I was telling Dark earlier today, I was like, the post stuck with me because it was like, this is where all the decisions were made, or something along those lines. Like, history will know this is where the decisions happened. What I think happened was the architecture of what you're seeing with David Bailey's launch, who's a media guy who helped seed kind of the Metaplanet idea in Japan. We've seen how well that's taken off. And now he's tweeting out stuff like, we're taking this around the world. We're going to basically hit every currency, every exchange, right? You're seeing all these tentacles starting to go out. And then you have, the Vivek and Vance's and Peter Thiel's basically Bitcoin-backed company that announced at Strategy World that they basically were going to essentially buy up zombie companies and convert the assets from 90% on the dollar back into a Bitcoin treasury, right? So you're seeing all of these various companies starting to come out just within the last couple of weeks, which are just tentacles and more ways of converting capital over, straining capital over into BTC. So I think we are moving fast. I think, the cat's out of the bag now.
Hey guys, I've got to jump soon. Loren, if you can stay a while, that's great. Old Taylor, I think
Thanks,
you might have had
Terrence.
your hand up first, but
No,
we
actually, I think
rarely see.
Jammer's had his hand up for like most of the afternoon, I believe, but I don't know if it's even up anymore. Jammer's been jammed in
Well,
front of multiple times.
if we can just quickly jump over to Alex Stanzik, he's never here, and I'm surprised to see his face in here. So I would
Sweet,
love to
Alex and
hear
then
from him
Jammer.
just
Yeah.
before I go, anyhow. So selfishly, I'd like to hear from Alex, and then we can jump back into line. Sorry, guys.
I don't mean to interrupt anything. I'll wait my turn. I just want to say thanks for hosting. Good to see you, Terrence. I actually popped in here because I saw Tomer and he's one of my favorite people on the whole freaking planet. So anyway, loving the discussion, and it's fascinating. So I'm just going to shut up and listen.
Jam on in, Jammer.
Oh, Alex, I feel so unsatisfied.
All right, Jammer, now's your chance.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for having me up. Likewise, love the discussion. I actually came up and raised my hand to hopefully provoke Darkside to touch on what he just did. So thank you, Darkside. I've been trying to game out how some of the specifics around the timing does play out here. Let's assume the bit bonds hit the market, whether it's 10 days from now, 52 weeks from now, it doesn't matter. They will. Okay, cool. How long does it take the market to adjust to this effective new risk free rate? And the answer to that, and if it's short term or longer term, is where we get either this is like a massive burning wildfire that is very painful for people in the short term, or we thread the needle and do it slowly over time to where this transition can take place. So I was kind of just curious to see how you guys are thinking this through. Darkside, appreciated your take on how you're seeing it. So love the combo. I think this is the signal right now. So really appreciate Puncher, Darkside, you guys steering us in this direction. Feels like a super important conversation to have. So thanks, guys.
All right, I think we got Old Taylor and then
All right.
G Victor.
Yeah, I've had my hand up like a million times, but I moved houses a couple days ago, and the internet freaking blows here, so I keep dropping. So
That's good information.
think
Go ahead, Taylor.
I think I'm stable right now, so I'm going to try to spit it out. Like you guys know, I've freaking said this like for a year now, but like, man, yeah, Jesse's up here talking about like how it's happening fast. He doesn't know the date, he doesn't know the time or anything. The freaking date is the 4th of July, 2026. Then all of these guys, Michael Saylor, freaking Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, David Sachs, all of these guys are our new founding fathers in the United States of America. And they are going to declare independence once again on the 250th anniversary of American independence. And they are going to tell the communists that took over our country in 1913 to go get fucked. And they're going to declare independence again. 4th of
I
July,
like that theory.
2026.
I like that
That
theory.
is the end of the Doge. It was in the executive order. The Department of Government Efficiency will be done with their work ending on the 4th of July, 2026. Because what happens on the 4th of July, 2026? They tell the Federal Reserve to get fucked. And that's what's happening. That's our timeline. And Bitcoin is the
And just like that, his internet went to crap again. G Victor.
Yeah, I wanted to go back, to the point about acting on Coinbase would be the end of Bitcoin or whatever. And we know the Democrats are plenty willing to kill Bitcoin. So game theorying this out, if we assume that that would be the end of the market or whatever, if the Democrats take control, they see that too. They grab Coinbase and the whole thing's dead. So you can't have it both ways, right? We say 6102 would destroy everything. Well, you don't think that Liz Warren sees that too? Um, okay, so
what
we can't have it both ways. You got to pick one, right? If we move on Coinbase, it's either good for Bitcoin or bad for Bitcoin. So which one is it?
So what, just quick
It's a
question,
false
what
choice.
happens when other countries, even if the Democrats come into office, but all the other countries are adopting Bitcoin like crazy? What happens then?
Do you guys remember back, I don't know, 4 months ago, we had a lot of conversations about how are they going to get the strategic reserve funded? We need congressional approval. The Democrats are never going to vote for it. The rhinos aren't going to go for it. They're going to protect the system. This is this is so smart. This is going around all of that corruption. It's it doesn't Bitcoin doesn't need their approval. And this one thing connected all the dots for me. they're going to go around that inertia. They're going to, that's the bulwark that the system has set up. We're not going to allow it. We're not going to do it. They're just going around the system, and that's it.
Hey Tomer, I think there's this is for me it's a little bit like the current, core dev issue in that you really need to go deep and do a lot of research to figure out what side of this you're on because, I don't think it's any well, I think there's a red flag when you talk about Tether being involved, Howard, blah 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 blah. There's definitely workarounds, but a lot of us that we hear that there's nothing bad for Bitcoin, but in actuality, sometimes I give pause and think like, could this be good or could this be bad? And so for me, I really want to do a lot more research before I just jump on board and just start applauding, some significant move in any way. That's not to undermine anything that, I'm against bit bonds or anything like that. I like all of that stuff. I'm always cautious to just jump on the let's applaud this movement bandwagon on a lot of these things. Tomer, what are your thoughts? Tomer, we can't hear you if you're speaking. I see you're off of mute, but your lips are moving, but there ain't no words coming out your mouth.
Well, just let me just say, Lauren, with all due respect, nobody cares what we think. This is
100%.
this is
Yeah.
going this is going to happen, and you can take time and try to figure it out and do some research. But for the longest time, and I think Maryland and Dark are in the same corner, I couldn't figure out how we get from A to B, and this is the only way. And when I did speak, I can't say much about this, but when I did speak to somebody who knew, there was a large pregnant pause, and they said, "You're not wrong," and that was
We got
it.
Tomer back.
Okay. What I was going to say is to contradict my earlier comments that these things don't happen overnight. One time I can remember I wasn't alive, or I was alive, but I was only 1 year old, so I don't remember it. It was President Nixon appeared on TV and said, "The dollar is no longer backed by gold. You can't redeem it temporarily." It's been a pretty long time, but it didn't, like, America didn't get possession of all the gold overnight. Between 1913 and 1971, there were a number of different things that happened, and things might have taken even longer. So I don't want to say that these policy changes can't happen overnight and mark a tremendous shift, but the build up to them and the preparation for them needs to put in place certain conditions. And on that front, I'd say, wow, America's pretty far away from having custody of enough Bitcoin, unless that guy who was up here before who mined 500,000 Bitcoin and sent them to a guy named Nick actually accidentally sent them to the government. Like, that's, even that's not enough. So I think we've got a ways to go here. But if we really, I think there's no question that the old monetary regime is showing its age. It's really struggling. It's falling apart. Bitcoin definitely looks like it's the thing that can take the place, but it's got some growing up to do on its own. A lot of people's acceptance to come to on its own, and maybe that's happening with the most important people, as Puncher uh, seems to be saying. And I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that. And then the accumulation of it by the parties who could make those decisions all still have to happen. So, like, but the takeaway here is all the same. It's like, inform yourself about this thing and get some of it if your information points in the same direction as what everybody who's up here is saying.
Yeah, Tomer, the going off the gold standard, the internet analogy, they move at a certain pace, and I totally agree. Gold moves at the pace of gold. We transitioned to a petrodollar instead and kind of papered over it. All the pieces are in place now. It's not like a lot of stuff has to happen. It can happen instantaneously, and there's nothing missing from the equation that it couldn't happen tomorrow. And that hasn't been the case since I've been around since
Well, the government can't
2013.
operate because they don't have enough Bitcoin to operate, and they
But
operate
they,
at a tremendous deficit.
They're not using the
yeah,
government.
but they
It's
they
not
don't
the
need the
government.
bit that this is the point. They don't need the Bitcoin, right? The way they're structuring this is that 21 through Cantor and Tether and SoftBank, they're the ones that are going to acquire the Bitcoin, and they don't care what price they pay for it. It does not matter to them, right? Because ultimately they're just doing structured products, right? So the way they're putting this apparatus together, it those are just those factors don't matter. The government doesn't need the Bitcoin. The government is simply going to be lending, is going to be borrowing money from 21, who is then going to be selling the structured product to investors, right? And that will reset. So think of it as an end run around the Fed, because you no longer need to go to the Fed and the Fed banks and have frappy buyers levering up 30x to buy your debt. Right now, you're going to have real investors that are investing through 21 through Cantor. Cantor will be writing the check to the U.S. government. You want a trillion? Here's a trillion. You want 3 trillion? Here's 3 trillion. Right? You want to pay us a 1.5% coupon for 10 years? Done. Right?
Yeah,
That's
Dark.
what's coming. And I just want to make the point that I think Puncher was trying to make. It doesn't matter whether we like it or not, because it's coming. Right? So whether France goes first or the UAE goes first or Russia goes first, you got to be prepared, because the demand for this capital, right? When the US government goes to refinance $10 trillion, they've got to have demand. And if that demand is going elsewhere because it can get an 8-9% return, 4.5% guaranteed, that's where it's going. Right. So the US government doesn't have a choice. And they know they need to go first. That's why I think it's much sooner rather than later. Because if you don't go first, you put yourself behind the 8 ball. And they know this.
Bitcoin alone was opening Pandora's box, but Bitbonds are the nation state adoption of Bitcoin opening a Pandora's box. And it doesn't matter if the Democrats or whoever are against it and they get back into power. The box is opened, and all of the nations of the world are now competing on a new game.
The internet in India sucks. Yeah, it sounds like who really suffers is those people on zero. So get off zero. Go ahead, Maryland.
The another thing I picked up on last December was American Hollow kept on talking about uh, the Saudi company,
I think we're being censored again, Lauren.
the Suncher.
This
Oh, yeah,
topic's too hot.
Maryland's talking. I don't know if you can hear him or not, Terrence.
Do you need me to
Oh,
drop
he
down?
wasn't in the
Go ahead,
matrix for you
Marilyn.
guys?
No, he's talking.
No, no, no.
So the AEU, basically during their Bitcoin Middle East conference that they did, uh, Maryland Holla or American Holla basically was saying that they were going to make a big announcement, right? And then that big announcement didn't come. And then there was some talk that happened, shortly thereafter amongst some of the other influencers that basically said they were told to back off and not say anything about their holdings until after the U.S. made its announcement, right? Which I was surprised because after the strategic reserve, there was no announcement. But then the can got kicked down the curve, regarding audits, and I think they're waiting until after this. The only thing that the AEU did was show that they had $500 million in IBIT, and that amount, that's not even scratching the surface of what I think that they might have. So I think once America makes the announcement, then I think you're going to start hearing, allied countries starting to make similar announcements that they've been acquiring or accumulating or mining for quite some time. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Russia's in the mix. But Darkside, I wanted to ask you, what does that look like when say 21 gets up and running, and how does that affect the treasury markets auction process, and how long does that take before the rates start really coming down?
So I don't think it does affect it, right? So you're gonna have like a parallel system of these bit bonds going along with traditional treasuries. And like I said, the kicker on the bit bonds, it can't be 14%, right? They're gonna have to sort of talk down expectations such that the results, right? The upside results of the bit bonds is a couple years out. And just to like give you a little bit of the math, right? If you did one of these bit bonds, like I just described, 2021 goes ahead and issues it. And over the 10-year period, Bitcoin goes up to $1 million. Okay. That would amount to about an 8.5% yield to the buyer of the bond. Right now, obviously, the question becomes, well, how could it take so long to get to $1 million if you have sovereigns and nation states and everybody else buying Bitcoin to do these bonds? And that's the question, right? Like, how fast does Bitcoin go up? But as Bitcoin kind of grinds higher, right? And I suspect that that's their plan, is not to try not to jack the price up to $1 million in the first year, because then the yield on the bonds goes through the roof, right? What they want to do is they want to gradually sort of wean the world off of fiat debt and onto bit bond debt, because they're going to have to, right? Like there's no other way to do it. You're not going to be able to issue, uh, traditional fiat debt at 4.5 if you can buy these bit bonds that are looking like 8 and 8.5, right? There's just, the market's not going to be there, right? And then what happens to the mortgage market, right? If you can earn 8.5% from Cantor Fitzgerald in 21, are you gonna lend money in the mortgage market at 7 or 6?
Well, what
No, you're
happens,
not.
dark side, is the mortgage market also becomes Bitcoin collateralized. Has to.
Well, yeah, it's the only way around it. Either that, or I would also throw out there that maybe they socialize mortgages, right? Where the government comes in through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and says, look, we're going to start issuing 2.5% first home mortgages for anyone who wants to buy one, right? And they subsidize it through, and of course they could do that by issuing 10-year debt that only pays a 1.5% coupon, so that becomes profitable, right? So like what we're the points we're trying to make, and why I think we're so um, passionate about this subject, is the world is going to change drastically, and nobody up here knows what it looks like. Like, we're speculating, we have our ideas. I think we're pretty much spot on in what's going to happen, but we don't know what the second order effects are going to look like. But again, companies like Strive, there are so many, 21, MicroStrategy, Nakamoto, right? Like, this is not happening in a vacuum, right? Wall Street acts on asymmetric information. That's how Wall Street makes money. They have better information than you do. And when you see all of these companies, right, piling into this area, right, it tells you something, right? They have information we don't have. So, is it possible? They don't really know, but they do know what's coming, right? This money, this amount of capital would not be pouring into this space if they didn't have information we didn't have.
Yeah. Hey, Puncher, what do you think? Maybe we carry this conversation on into tomorrow's space, or did you have a guest lined up for tomorrow? Punch Bowl.
Well, O'Hare was in the audience, and I kind of told him I wasn't co-host today. I couldn't bring him up when he was
Ah,
in the audience. I want to bring him up because it's so stupid to argue with the TradFi guy. He came onto our spaces and he said, "Oh, these Bitcoiners, they're so hypocritical. They talk about how they want to change the world and they're so great and they care about everybody, but really all they talk about is number go up and they want to pump their bags." And I was like, dude, the two aren't mutually exclusive. And I wanted to bring him up. So tomorrow, look, if he comes or not, I don't know. I'd like to give him some time, not to scream and yell at him and tell him he's stupid, but just I want him to hear this conversation. I was really on high warble earlier, and I apologize, especially with Joe. But this is the most important thing. Like, this is like a second American Revolution, like Taylor was saying. And I am almost 100% sure this is going to happen. It's going to happen pretty soon. So my passion is because there's people that I truly care about. And O'Hare, I don't know that guy from Adam, but I would love for him to understand this because it's that important. I really think it is. And so tomorrow, if you don't like talking about Bitcoin bonds and transformations and, how do we get from A to B and how do you protect yourself, well, don't tune in tomorrow because I think that's what I'd like to talk about.
Wait,
That sounds
so
good.
Punch, is he's the guy that you're saying does not like he thinks unfavorably of the Bitcoin community? Is it that's the guy?
Look, he's hanging around the rim. He's listening, but he thinks,
Okay.
he's just saying you're all hypocrites and this. I don't want to talk about him without him being here. I want him
Got
to
it.
tell us
So
what he
let's just be
thinks.
nice.
But
Let's just be nice, but he's hopefully we
yeah, of course, like we're nice to Joe. No,
yeah.
I'm kidding, Joe. Joe's awesome. Joe, I consider you a friend, so I apologize if I'm out of line at
Yeah,
times.
Puncher gets a little heated, but he leaves it on the court, which is one good thing about him. So he is passionate about what he speaks, and then he is definitely quick to, if he has crossed any lines, to make amends. So that I appreciate that about you. Maybe we close this one down for now, and raise your hand if you do want to say a couple parting words. I know Jesse always has things to say, and we'll go to Jesse, and then raise your hand, and we'll go to you if you want to say goodbye. Jesse.
Yeah, just quick closing remarks.
Well, I'll just go with I love Bitcoin on that one and pass the mic. Keep it short.
Nobody else is raising their hand. Looks like Dark, you're here. Did you want to say a goodbye?
Yeah, yeah, just a closing statement. Like, we're not here to scare the shit out of you. We're here to try to educate all of both you and us, and to hear the ideas. Right, like what we're about to. I think what we're about to embark on is indeed the second American Revolution, and I think we're all going to benefit from it. Right, I do. So I again, I don't want to act like we're here to scare people or come up with doomer ideas. I truly believe that these ideas are going to improve the quality of life for both us and our children. So I'll land the plane there.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, you guys were talking about 6102 and about 1971. And to me, those are things arguing that, in fact, the system is broken and the system has been obfuscated. And when, we have a few dudes in a room that get to pick and choose winners and losers, like, I mean, that's not a market. We didn't have to add the word free in front of market until, it has obviously been broken. So, Maryland, go ahead.
Just want to say I appreciate you guys giving me the space to kind of share my thoughts and ideas, and especially to you, Dark, for having some conversations with me ahead of time too. So thank you all. I really appreciate having a chance to talk.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, guys, this is about hope and freedom and love, like all the good stuff. So, I mean, we get heated about disagreeing on, really, actually, a lot of the stuff is dumb because a lot of it's gray areas anyway, because we do agree on a lot of the same substantive stuff. Jammer, go ahead. Oh, you're
Oh,
waving.
Lauren, that was a goodbye wave.
Oh, okay, okay, cool.
Thanks, man.
Let's see. I think, Taylor made it back up, so the internet is connecting again, possibly in, yeah. Taylor, we're saying goodbyes now. Did you want to say some stuff before we close her up? Maybe the internet's not that good. While we're waiting for Taylor, Alex, did you want to have a couple parting words for the folks before we end this one?
No, I'll just say thanks for the convo, man. It was very interesting. I had not considered any of what you guys were talking about today, so you gave me a lot to think about. So thanks for that.
Absolutely. I think, I mean, didn't Samson work with folks down in El Salvador on some Bitbond stuff and whatnot? I mean, to me, this is just the next logical vehicle, and I think Dark's really been saying the word a lot and getting it out there. Puncher.
Nope, it's just great. You got
Yeah.
everybody here has got such subject matter expertise that I could never in a million years connect all these dots if it wasn't for really smart people who connect them for me and create new insights for me and give me things to think about and to read. And I'm just blown away by how blessed I am. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, I'll just throw in. I'm looking forward to meeting as many people as humanly possible in Vegas. That's for me one of the truly most wonderful parts about any conference or anything like that is just mulling around with all you crazy plebs. We're on the same wavelength, definitely vibing together, and so I really feel it's the tribe, and I just can't wait to have a beer or whatever it is we do together in Vegas. But shake your hand and say hello, if nothing else. But I think most importantly is just love one another, be kind, and that when we do have discussions like this, I think it's important that we all get off zero, custody our own coins, and other than that, Puncher's on tomorrow. So look forward to probably rehashing a lot of this stuff, and have a wonderful day, everybody.
See ya.